A war of this size should begin with shouting. It should begin with drums, with wheels, with men rushing forward into dust and sunlight. Instead, it begins with a pause, so deep you can hear horses breathing. Two armies face each other across Kurukshetra, and the whole earth seems to lean in. In another moment, Conch will split the morning open. But first, in the narrow strip of ground between kin and kin, one man will ask his charioteer to drive closer. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are standing on the field of Kurukshetra before sunrise. The air is warm already, not the soft warmth of a gentle dawn. Awaiting heat, a heavy one. It sits on your skin with the promise of noon. Dust hangs low over the plain, stirred by hooves and wheels, and thousands upon thousands of restless feet. It tastes dry on your tongue. The smell reaches you in layers. Horse sweat first, sharp and alive. Then elephant musk, damp leather, oiled wood, metal warmed by torchlight, ghee from the lamps that burned through the night in little wind-shaken flames, sandalwood from prayer fires, faint jasmine from garlands now wilting on standards and helmets, and under all of it, the old smell of open earth, sacred and patient, as if this field remembers every foot that has crossed it. You turn slowly, and the scale of it refuses to fit inside your mind. Banners everywhere, red, gold, white, black, blue, silks snapping in the dawn wind, emblems of serpents, lions, suns, silver moons, towering trees, boars, swans, maces, bows, chariots lined rank after rank, axle beside axle, elephants armored and painted, their foreheads marked, their tusks tipped and gleaming, cavalry shifting in long ripples, foot soldiers packed so densely they seem like a second earth laid over the first. If you tried to count them, you would still be counting at sunset. And everyone has come dressed for destiny. Crowns, arm rings, mail coats, polished helmets, silk sashes over armor, quivers full, spears upright, sword hilts catching the first weak light. It would almost be beautiful if it were not so clear what all this beauty is for. This is the ancient equivalent of a family gathering where everyone has brought a weapon and no one plans to apologize. The sky above is pale and strange. The sun has not yet fully climbed, but the horizon glows like copper through smoke. Carrion birds circle in patient loops far overhead. Somewhere to your left, a drum sounds once and falls silent. Somewhere to your right, an elephant gives a low rumbling cry, and another answers. The sound moves through the ranks like distant thunder trapped in living throats. At the far edge of the Kuru host, old kings stand in their chariots under white umbrellas. At the head of one division is Bhishma, grandsire of this ruined house, silver-haired and straight-backed, his banner lifting in the wind. Nearby stands Drona, teacher of princes, stern and still. Kripa watches with the cold focus of a man who has long since made peace with war's routines. Duryodhana is there too, restless, armored, shining, unable to be still even now. The good news is that he is a prince. The bad news is that he has spent years preparing the world for this morning. Across from them, under the banners of the sons of Pandu, the answering force waits. Yudhishthira holds himself steady like a flame inside a lamp. Bhima stands broad as a gate, impatient for the first signal. Nakula and Sahadeva gleam like twin edges of polished steel. Kings from distant lands hold their places. Veterans tighten their grips. Young men try very hard to look older than they are. And there, bright even in this dim hour, is the chariot you came to find. It stands with a golden pole and a banner crowned by Hanuman, the monkey hero, his form alive in the cloth as the wind catches it. 4 white horses stamp and toss their manes. Their harnesses are jeweled, their flanks quiver. Their breath steams faintly in the cooling edge of dawn. In that chariot stands Arjuna. You know him at once, the great bowman, broad-shouldered, dark-haired, restless-eyed, the one princes whispered about in training yards and kings measured themselves against in private. His Gandiva bow rests near his hand. His armor catches the light in quiet flashes. He looks ready, completely ready, which is what makes the next moment so strange. At the front of the chariot, holding the reins with easy strength, stands Krishna. He does not look strained. He does not look hurried. Around him, all this iron breathes and trembles, but he stands, as if dawn itself has asked him to wait. The reins lie in his hands. The horses answer the smallest movement of his wrists. Dust gathers on the hem of his yellow garment. A peacock feather shifts softly above his dark hair. You are close enough now to hear the leather creak, close enough to hear the horses stamp, close enough to feel the hush around these 2 men, though an army surrounds them. Torches gutter nearby, sending little ribbons of smoke into the brightening air. A standard rope taps against a chariot side. Mail rustles. Someone coughs and then immediately regrets making any sound at all, because this is the edge. Behind Arjuna stand brothers, allies, vows, 13 years of exile, insult, endurance, hunger, and patience worn thin. Behind the men facing him stand the same house, the same ancestors, the same bloodline, cousins everywhere, earth beneath all of them. And over this field hangs the scent of marigold and fear. A little cluster of attendants hurries past, carrying spare arrows and water skins. One nearly trips in the churned soil, catches himself, and keeps going with great dignity, which is impressive because dignity is difficult while running through dust in sandals between 2 armies. No one laughs, but you feel the shape of laughter anyway, small and human, still somehow alive here. The conches have not yet sounded. That matters. The world is still balanced on a single breath. Once the first note rises, everything changes. Banners advance, wheels bite earth, arrows darken the air. Names that have lasted for generations begin their long fall into memory. But not yet, not yet. Now the horses toss their heads. Krishna gathers the reins a little tighter. Arjuna lifts his gaze across the field. At first it seems he is only measuring distances. Lines of infantry, elephant corps, chariot, wings, the placement of seasoned kings, the old habits of a warrior's eye. But there is something else moving beneath that look, something heavier, something that does not belong to tactics. You feel it before he speaks. The tension reaches his shoulders first, then his jaw. His breath changes. The hand nearest the bow flexes once and stills. Across from him, in the Kuru ranks, stand men he has known since childhood, men whose voices once echoed through palace halls, men who watched him learn to string a bow, men who blessed him, men who envied him, men who ate beside him at festival fires. The field is full of enemies. The field is also full of family. A breeze comes over the plain and brings with it ash from ritual fires, trampled grass, hot leather, and the river scent from far away. You taste all of it. You feel the grit gathering at your ankles. Dawn climbs another finger width higher. Then Arjuna leans slightly toward Krishna. No speech for the army, no grand proclamation, just one request, low and direct. He wants the chariot taken forward, into the space between the two armies. He wants to see those who have come to stand against him. Krishna hears. Of course he hears. He does not argue. He does not turn with surprise. His hands move on the reins with that same calm precision, and the 4 white horses answer at once. Their harness bells give a soft, bright tremor. Hooves press into the dirt. The chariot begins to roll. You go with it. Forward through the waiting hush, past lines of archers and spearmen, past elephant ranks that sway like moving hills, past kings under parasols and foot soldiers gripping shields slick with morning dew. Wheels turn over sacred dust. The axle hums. The horses breathe in rhythm, strong and warm. The space ahead opens. Between the armies, there is suddenly room enough for thought, room enough for dread, room enough for memory to arrive uninvited and sit down beside you. Krishna drives straight into that empty strip of earth where no one yet dares step. To your left, the Pandava host stretches to the horizon. To your right, the Kaurava host answers it like a mirror cracked by fate. And there, in the middle of them both, with the reins in Krishna's hands and the whole world waiting for a sound, Arjuna prepares to look. The wheels keep turning. The space between the armies widens around you, and with it, something else opens. Old hurt, old shame, old vows, made under hotter suns than this one. Arjuna is looking ahead, but you can feel he is also falling backward through time. Because a warrior's hands do not begin shaking for no reason, not after all this. The horses toss their pale heads, leather creaks, dust lifts in little sighs under the wheels. From somewhere far off comes the sharp, restless cry of a kite circling overhead. And before Arjuna sees the old men waiting on the other side, he remembers another hall, another crowd, another day when everything should have stopped and did not. It begins with polished stone, cool floors under bare feet, tall pillars wound with gold, lamps burning thick ghee so the air itself feels heavy and sweet, silk whispering as courtiers shift, dice clicking against a board with a sound so small, so neat, and so ruinous that it might as well be thunder. You are there with him now, not on the field, in Hastinapura. The great hall is bright as midday, but no one inside seems able to see clearly. Yudhishthira sits straight-backed, proud and strained, already too deep in a game he should never have accepted. Shakuni's fingers are lazy with the dice, soft as a snake moving through dry leaves. Duryodhana lounges with that look he gets when cruelty is about to dress itself as entertainment, and Arjuna stands with his brothers, every muscle tight. At first it is jewels, chariots, herds, servants, treasure, the ordinary madness of kings where men gamble things they did not build and call it sport. But the pile grows, the hall grows hotter, sweat gathers under collars and arm rings. The smell of sandalwood can no longer cover the smell of fear. You can feel it in your own throat. Yudhishthira loses again and again. Each throw lands like a door shutting. He wagers the kingdom. Gone. He wagers his brothers. Gone. He wagers himself. Gone. By then the silence in the hall has changed shape. It is no longer the quiet of attention. It is the quiet of decent men failing one by one. Then comes the unthinkable, Draupadi. Even now, with the war breathing down his neck, that is the memory that strikes Arjuna hardest. Not the loss of gold, not the loss of land, her. He can still see the messenger sent to fetch her, can still feel the strange, suspended beat before the horror became public. She hadn't been in the hall. She had been elsewhere, in her own chambers, not dressed for assembly, not prepared to become a wager in a game she never touched. When she refused to come, they sent another hand, a rougher one. You can almost hear it before you see it. Bangles struck together too hard, the scrape of sandals on stone, the ragged sound of silk pulled in anger. Then she is there, dragged by the hair, furious, humiliated, blazing brighter than everyone in that room. The whole court should have risen. No one did. Bhima shook like a storm chained to a mountain. Arjuna's hands clenched until the knuckles whitened. Nakula and Sahadeva looked as if the floor had opened beneath them. Old men dropped their eyes. Wise men discovered sudden interest in the carvings on the pillars. The blind king sat in darkness of more than one kind, and Yudhishthira, bound by the throw, by the rules, by that terrible addiction to being honorable even while wolves wrote the rules around him, sat and said nothing that could save her. This is the wound, not one wound, many. Draupadi demanded to know the truth that no one in the hall wanted to answer. If a man had already lost himself, what right had he to stake his wife? She threw the question like a spear into a room full of decorated cowards. It landed in every chest. Still they hesitated. Still they muttered. Still Duryodhana grinned. The lamps smoked. The dice board sat between them like a little wooden altar to disaster. Outside, evening birds must have been calling over the palace gardens. Inside, Dharma itself seemed to be holding its breath. You are standing there with Arjuna, and you feel the sickening helplessness of it. He could break the hall apart. He could strike. He could end the insult in a heartbeat. He has the arms for it. Bhima certainly has the appetite, but one brother's word holds the others in place. That is the cruelty of family. Sometimes love ties your hands while your heart begs you to act. Draupadi stood in that room like fire refusing to go out. She did not collapse. She did not beg in the small, frightened way her enemies wanted. She forced the court to hear itself. She forced old men to remember what they had spent years pretending not to know. And then, by grace and terror and the cracking of a moment that had gone too far, the disaster paused. The blind king, frightened by omens, by outrage, by the possibility that the house of Kuru might burst into flame from the inside, granted boons. He tried to patch a broken dam with handfuls of silk. Draupadi asked freedom for Yudhishthira, freedom for the brothers, a way out. For one breath, it seemed the family had reached the edge and stepped back. Then, because some people can leave poison untouched for only so long, the dice were brought out again. Of course they were. That is the maddening part. The fire had already singed everyone's eyebrows off, and still they leaned back over the stove. One more game, one more throw, one more chance for disaster to wear formal clothes. The terms were simple and merciless. Lose, and the Pandavas would go into exile for 12 years, and a 13th year hidden in disguise. If discovered during that final year, the count would begin again. Shakuni threw, Yudhishthira lost. Just like that, princes became wanderers. The memory turns The hall vanishes. Stone gives way to root and thorn. You smell damp earth after rain, wood smoke caught in rough cloth, crushed leaves under sandals, the sweet rot of fallen fruit, mosquitoes whining at dusk like tiny priests chanting malice. The forest is never merely green. It is 10,000 greens, and every one of them seems to say the same thing: not home. Exile sounds romantic until you actually have to do it. Then it is blisters, it is wet bedding, it is eating late because the firewood was damp. It is remembering palace mattresses while trying to sleep on woven grass. It is realizing that deer are lovely from a distance and very annoying when they raid your food. The Pandavas went. Draupadi went with them. That matters. She did not stay behind in comfort. She carried her own grief into the trees. Some days she was fierce enough to keep everyone else upright. Some days the injustice sat on her like iron. Arjuna knew every mile of it. You walk with him now beneath sal and banyan. The air is thick and humming. Monsoon water drips from leaf to leaf long after the rain itself has passed. Hermits, 10 small fires under thatched shelters. Deer flash between trunks. Somewhere a river moves brown and full, carrying foam and flower petals and half the mountain with it. The brothers learned the shape of a life without walls. Yudhishthira listened to sages and tried to build meaning out of loss. Bhima hunted, ate, grumbled, and occasionally looked as if he would like to bite fate directly on the neck. Nakula and Sahadeva kept order where they could, their royal habits somehow surviving among bark garments and clay pots. Draupadi remembered everything, and Arjuna could not simply sit under trees and become philosophical. Not with a war coming, because even in exile, war was already growing, quietly, patiently, like a seed under stone. There were journeys in those years, hard ones, necessary ones. Arjuna went north for weapons no ordinary king could dream of lifting, up through thinner air where breath came sharp and mean, past pine and cedar, past villages tucked into slopes like swallow nests, into the high silence where snow keeps its own counsel and even princes learn humility. You can feel that cold after the heat of the plains. It bites the inside of your nose. It cracks the skin at the knuckles. Your breath turns white and brief. He performed austerities there. You see him stripped down from royal comfort to pure resolve. Hair matted, body lean, mind fixed. Standing still while mountain winds tried to carve him hollow. Days passing with little food. Nights long enough to hear his own heartbeat like a drum in the dark. The gods notice stubbornness of that quality. So does Shiva. He came not crowned in easy splendor, but disguised, because gods enjoy a test almost as much as kings enjoy trouble. A wild hunter in the forest. A quarrel over a beast brought down by 2 arrows. Pride met pride. Bow met bow. The clash rang through the mountain air. Arjuna learned, in the way heroes often do, that the stranger before him was no stranger at all. And when the truth broke open, divine weapons came into his keeping like thunder folded into human hands. Not gifts for display, not ornaments, promises, terrible glittering promises about what the future would demand. You stand on that mountain ridge with him for a breath, and then you're back in the forest again, where the years continue to grind on. Seasons circle, heat, rain, cold, heat again. Bark garments rasp on the skin, hair grows longer, anger deepens, then settles, then sharpens again. They meet sages, demons come and are overcome. Friends arrive with news from cities that still sleep on carved beds, while the rightful kings of the land swat insects in the dark. Krishna visits, and every visit is like water carried into a burning house. He does not erase the injustice. He never pretends it did not happen. But he brings something steadier than comfort. He brings himself. That matters more than people realize. A true friend does not always solve your problem. Sometimes he simply sits close enough that the problem stops swallowing the whole sky. You can picture those evenings, firelight on dark faces, rice and roots cooking in an iron pot, night insects singing so loudly the forest seems to vibrate. Krishna speaking low with the brothers while Draupadi listens from just beyond the flame, her eyes still bright with remembered insult. No one forgets. That is the point. Exile is not amnesia in bark clothing. It is memory with fewer distractions. And then, after 12 long years, comes the 13th, the hidden year. For princes raised beneath parasols, this part is almost funny if you do not think too long about the humiliation. Great warriors, born to command armies, scattered into disguises like actors in a traveling troupe. Yudhishthira becomes a court companion and dice player again, which is about as comforting as asking a man who once burned down his kitchen to please watch the oil. Bhima works among cooks and wrestlers, delighted to be near large pots and opportunities for intimidation. Nakula tends horses. Sahadeva cares for cattle. Draupadi enters the queen's chambers as an attendant, carrying royal grace under servant's cloth. And Arjuna, best archer of his age, terror of battlefields, student of gods, becomes Brihanala, teacher of dance and song. Life has jokes, and sometimes they arrive wearing anklets. You can almost smile despite yourself. You see him in Virata's palace, hair arranged, voice softened, moving through women's quarters where he would once never have been admitted, teaching princesses rhythm with careful hands, demonstrating steps, turns, mudras, the slap of feet on polished floors, the jingle of ornaments, perfume in the air instead of horse sweat, silk instead of armor, a warrior passing the year with dance lessons. If he had not lived it himself, even Bhima might have called it an insult too outrageous to invent. But Arjuna endured. That is what people forget about him. They remember the arrows, the dazzling skill, the glory under open sky. They forget endurance, the patience to wear a shape that was not his own, the discipline to survive humiliation without losing the center of himself. You are in that palace now. The floors are cool. Lotus fragrance drifts in from inner courtyards. Women laugh behind veils. Outside, peacocks cry like broken trumpets. Arjuna, hidden in plain sight, measures every hour. One wrong gesture, one old reflex, one visible spark of the prince beneath the performer, and the exile begins again. So he teaches, he survives, he waits. Then trouble comes, because trouble can smell a disguised hero from 3 kingdoms away. The Kauravas raid Virata's cattle. Princes scramble, boys boast. Real warriors are scarce. The young prince Uttara, full of noise and not much useful experience, rides out eager for glory and then loses his courage the moment he sees the opposing host. Understandable, honestly. Courage is very easy in the palace courtyard. It becomes less cooperative when Bhishma, Drona, Karna, and half the world are looking back at you with actual weapons. So there they are, one trembling prince, one dance teacher holding a secret large enough to split the sky. Arjuna reveals himself, not to the world, not yet, just enough. He retrieves the hidden weapons. The old bow returns to his hand, like something alive coming home. He ties up his hair. The softness drops away. Brihanala disappears. Arjuna stands where she stood. It must have felt like breathing properly after months underwater. You can hear the chariot wheels rattle as he takes the reins of the situation, if not the horses. You can smell the leather of the weapon cases long hidden in the branches of a tree. Dust rises. Wind snaps the banner. The prince stares as if a painted god has stepped off a wall and begun issuing practical instructions. Then Arjuna goes out and drives back the raiders, not by boasting, not by speeches, by being himself at full measure. He defeats the gathered kings, shatters their pride, and returns the cattle. It is one of those days when the sun itself seems to lean down to watch. By evening, the hidden year is complete. The vow has been endured. So the brothers step back into their names, and for a little moment, a very little one, the future seems manageable. Claims can be made now. Terms can be discussed. The kingdom can be returned. After all, the exile was completed exactly as agreed. This is where reasonable people would solve things. Unfortunately, the room is still full of Kurus. Messengers begin to move between courts. Kings choose sides. Old friendships become military calculations. Armorers work deep into the night. Elephant stables fill. Smiths hammer metal until sparks leap like fireflies. Across Bharata, roads thicken with men marching toward someone else's idea of justice. But even then, the Pandavas do not rush to war. That matters too. They ask for what is theirs, then less than what is theirs, then less still. The air around these negotiations tastes like rain that never falls, heavy, metallic, promising relief and delivering heat instead. Krishna himself goes to Hastinapura. You can see the city receiving him, banners stirring, conches sounding, elders coming out in formal robes, the palace washed and scented, garlands hung, floors sprinkled with cool water against the dust, everyone aware that if anyone can untie this knot, it is the man with the reins in his hands now. He goes as ambassador, not with sword drawn, not with the discus blazing. He goes with words, calm words, fair words, final words. In the court, he lays out the simple path back from disaster. Give the Pandavas their due. End the bitterness before the earth has to drink for it. Preserve the family. Preserve the kingdom. Preserve what can still be preserved. The elders know he is right. Bhishma knows. Drona knows. Vidura knows. Even the blind king, deep down in that chamber where fear and love and weakness knot together, knows. But Duryodhana has fed his pride too long to let it starve now. He will not yield land enough to pierce with a needle. You can feel the arrogance of it. Imagine a man looking at the edge of a storm and deciding to spit at it. Worse, he dreams of seizing Krishna himself in the court, as if a king's hall could hold what holds the stars. It is one of those plans so foolish it almost becomes impressive, like trying to trap lightning in a lunch basket. The attempt comes to nothing. How could it not? The splendor Krishna reveals, there is enough to shake hardened men to the marrow. Not the full, unbearable immensity Arjuna will see soon. Not yet, but enough. Enough for the wise to tremble. Enough for the blind king to beg for sight, just long enough to behold and then surrender it again. And still Duryodhana hardens. When Krishna leaves Hastinapura, peace leaves with him. That is the sound Arjuna remembers now, while the chariot rolls forward. The soft metallic chime of harness rings, yes, but under it another sound, the last door closing. Krishna returned from that embassy with no treaty, no land, no hope dressed in legal language, only certainty. War. Not because the Pandavas desired it, not because they had not suffered enough to value peace, not because no one tried, because every gentler road had been walked to its end and found blocked by one man's refusal. You can feel how exhausted that makes the soul. People think war is made of rage alone. Often it is made of weariness first. Years of asking, years of waiting, years of swallowing insult, then learning patience, then swallowing more. By the time the armor is strapped on, something in you is already tired beyond speech. Arjuna knows all this. He agreed to it. He gathered allies. He readied weapons. He fastened the bracers on his forearms. He yoked his skill to necessity. When the summons came, he did not hide in a temple or disappear into the woods. He came to Kurukshetra, exactly as a Kshatriya should. That is why this moment is so terrible. Because nothing is unclear, not politically, not practically, not even morally in the broad outline. The insult was real. The exile was real. The broken promises were real. The failed embassy was real. The enemy host now stretching before him is very real indeed. The horses snort, tossing flecks of foam from their bits. Sunlight glances off spearheads until your eyes ache. Heat begins to gather under armor, in cloth folds, under the straps at the shoulder. Somewhere behind you, Bhima's great conch waits like a storm trapped in bone. And still, Arjuna's body starts to resist. This is how the heart betrays the plan. Not out of cowardice, not because he suddenly thinks Duryodhana deserves the throne, not because 13 years have taught him nothing, but because memory is not a straight line. It comes all at once. Draupadi in the hall, hair disordered, eyes on fire, Bhima beside him, trembling with vows. Yudhishthira, ruined by one more throw. Forest nights under dripping leaves. Mountain wind on bare skin. The ridiculous dignity of dance lessons in exile. The hidden weapons drawn from the tree. Krishna returning from Hastinapura with peace, broken in his hands. All of it enters the chariot with him. You feel it now, packed as tightly as arrows in a quiver. And there is something else tangled in it, something harder to bear. The men waiting on the other side are woven through those memories too. That is the trap. The same Bhishma who stood silent in the dice hall also once held these brothers on his lap. The same Drona who took the Kaurava side also taught Arjuna to shoot until the bow felt like part of his own arm. Kripa was family. The cousins were enemies. Now yes, but once they had raced through corridors together under palace lamps. How do you divide memory cleanly? You do not. That is why the hand trembles. A breeze moves across the open strip between the armies. It brings with it mixed smells, horse, leather, iron, trampled grass, a thread of incense from some king's morning offering still clinging absurdly to the air. Above, banners snap. The monkey on Arjuna's standard streams bright against the sky. Krishna says nothing yet. He lets the chariot roll. He knows that some griefs must fully rise before they can be answered. You sit in that silence beside them and feel the whole long road pressing into this narrow strip of ground. One throw of dice becoming 13 years. 13 years becoming this morning. This morning becoming the pause before a conch shell splits the world. Arjuna has endured humiliation, exile, disguise, preparation, disappointment, and the long collapse of every peaceful hope. He came anyway. He is here, and precisely because he is not a brute, because he remembers too much and loves too deeply. The body begins to revolt just as duty reaches for him. The chariot slows. Ahead, the faces on the Kaurava side sharpen out of the haze. Old teachers, old uncles, men who blessed him once, men who wronged him, men who did both. The weight of 13 years settles fully at last, not on the field, on his chest. The axle gives a low wooden groan. One horse stamps and jingles its harness. Dust drifts through a shaft of sunlight and hangs there, gold for an instant. And Arjuna, who has carried all this without breaking, is about to look straight into the eyes of those he must bring down. That is when the bow begins to feel heavy. The chariot stops, the horses go still, and Arjuna looks out across the field. For one strange heartbeat, Kurukshetra becomes quieter than a temple at dawn. Not silent, never silent. You still hear harness rings chiming softly. A horse snorts and tosses foam from its bit. Somewhere far left, an elephant rumbles like distant thunder inside its own chest. Standards snap in the wind. Armor shifts, leather creaks. The whole field breathes. But the noise has thinned. It is the sound of too many men waiting. Krishna stands easy at the front of the chariot, reins looped in his hands, dark hair stirring at his neck. He has brought them exactly where Arjuna asked, into the raw strip between armies, where no one belongs for long. Ahead, the Kaurava lines spread wide as a second horizon, and now the faces become faces, not helmets, not banners, not ranks, faces. That is the beginning of the collapse. A little dust skims low over the ground and touches the chariot wheel. The smell comes up warm and dry. Sun-baked earth, horse sweat, oil on bowstrings, a faint sweetness from crushed kusa grass under thousands of feet. Arjuna had imagined this moment before. Of course he had. Every warrior does. You picture the enemy line. You harden your heart. You remember your wrongs. You fix your hand. You become iron. Very useful plan. Then reality arrives and ruins it. Because there, under the white umbrella, with his silver standard lifting in the wind, is Bhishma, the old grandsire, the man who once bent down so Arjuna could clamber into his lap with dusty knees and no manners at all, the one who smelled of sandalwood and clean linen and the river after evening prayer, the giant of the house, the pillar that was always there. You can almost see the memory strike him, not the warrior first, the grandfather, a courtyard in Hastinapura at twilight, oil lamps just lit, the stone still warm from the day. Bhishma seated beneath a carved pillar, one grandchild hanging off each arm like monkeys on a tree. Duryodhana, trying to look dignified, even at 10 years old, and failing completely. Bhima already eating somebody else's sweets. Arjuna, leaning forward with his chin in his hands, listening while Bhishma traced constellations in the darkening sky and named them one by one. That star, that hunter, that river of light. You can feel the evening breeze on that old palace terrace. Smell jasmine from the women's quarters. Hear anklets somewhere down the corridor. Hear children fighting over whose turn it is to sit closest. And now that same hand, Bhishma's hand, the one that used to steady a child's shoulder, rests on a bow meant for war. Arjuna's fingers twitch, not yet dropping Gandiva, but not steady either. Krishna does not speak. He lets Arjuna see the next face. Drona. There he is, austere even in armor, beard pale, eyes sharpened by long discipline. His standard lifts over him. His shoulders are still square. Age has not taken the straightness from him. He stands like a rule no one dared break. Teacher, not merely of archery, of repetition, of posture, of breath, of the tiny humiliations that turn boys into masters, the memory comes hard and clear. Morning at the training ground. Dust cool before sunrise. The boys lined in a row, half awake, all pretending they are not sleepy. Drona walking past with a stick in hand, correcting elbows, wrists, stance. Bhima fidgeting like a bull forced into embroidery lessons. Yudhishthira trying so honestly it hurts. Duryodhana glaring at everyone as if excellence were an insult done personally to him. Ashvathama, Drona's own son, standing close and watching everything. And Arjuna, always Arjuna. You can see him there, lean, hungry, listening with his whole body. The pupil who stayed after the others left, the one who practiced in rain, in dusk, in moonlight, by sound alone when the lamps were blown out. The boy who heard a dog bark somewhere beyond the trees and turned toward it before anyone else did. Drona had seen that hunger and fed it. He had made Arjuna greater than the others because Arjuna wanted greatness the way thirsty earth wants rain. There is one evening memory brighter than the rest. A lamp goes out during supper. The servants fuss. Everybody complains. Bhima naturally keeps eating in the dark because food has never required philosophy from him. Arjuna notices that the hand still knows the way to the mouth, even when the eye cannot help. Later, while the palace sleeps, he goes out to practice in darkness. Drona finds him there. No lecture, no scolding, only a long look. Then pride so deep it almost hurts to witness. My finest student, he had once called him. And now teacher and student stand on opposite sides of a field, built for ruin. The heat presses closer. Sweat gathers beneath Arjuna's arm guards. His breath shortens, though he has not drawn a single arrow. You are there in the chariot with him now, and you feel it too, that awful rearrangement of the world when names change all at once. Enemy becomes uncle. Target becomes elder. Opponent becomes the man who tied your first finger guard and told you not to grip the string like a frightened crow. The field keeps opening. Kripa stands there too, still composed, still impossible to surprise. Shalya, Somadatta, Purishrava, Jayadratha with that proud carriage of his, as if humility had once passed near him and he had firmly shut the door. Kana farther down the line, bright as a blade in sunlight, his armor gleaming, his face unreadable from here. For years Arjuna has poured rivalry into that one name, like oil into a lamp. It should help. It does not help enough, because the others are still there. Brothers-in-law, cousins, princes he knew as boys with scraped elbows and grass in their hair, men who shared festival meals beneath the same palace roof. You can almost smell those old festival nights now. Ghee lamps smoking gently, cardamom and roasted sesame, wet lotus laid in brass bowls, marigold garlands warming in the heat. The halls would glow gold, priests would chant, drums would pulse in the courtyards. Children would run where they should not run, chased by exasperated nurses who never caught anyone on the first try. At such times, the Kuru house had felt whole, a dangerous memory because it tempts you to believe it was always truly one family and not a wound being politely wrapped in silk. Still, love is love. It does not ask whether it is tactically convenient. Arjuna's gaze moves again. He sees Dhritarashtra's sons, not as a number, not the famous hundreds spoken like a curse or a challenge. He sees them one by one, and the old years stir under the armor. Duryodhana first, of course. Impossible not to see him, proud, armored, jaw set, hungry even now. The cousin who could turn a room cold simply by entering it. The boy who smiled like a drawn knife when he won and glared like an insulted king when he lost. The one who made every game into an argument with destiny. Dushasana nearby, restless and eager, never far from his brother's shadow. Others beyond them, some cruel, some merely loyal, some foolish, some half lost in the machinery of an older brother's rage. Arjuna remembers wrestling courtyards, training halls, hunting rides, ceremonies where all the princes stood in one line, bathed and jeweled, while elders blessed them with rice and sacred water. They did not come into the world carrying swords. They came in squalling and slippery like everyone else, handed from midwife to nurse, while somebody ran through palace corridors with very important news. That is the difficulty. That is the wound. Every fearsome man on this field was once a child. Somebody bounced on a knee. You can feel Arjuna's mind refusing to flatten them into enemies. And why would it? The heart is not a clock. It does not sort people into neat piles because war would prefer efficiency. A vulture circles high above, black against the bleached blue sky. Dust catches in the throat. One of the horses stamps again, impatient, and the chariot gives a small shudder through its wooden frame. Arjuna keeps looking. He should stop. He does not stop. Across the lines, he sees sons of friends, sons of enemies, sons of no one he ever noticed much until this terrible morning. The young ones are the hardest, barefaced, some of them. Eager, frightened, pretending not to be frightened, gripping spears too tightly, and there, his own kin, through marriage and clan, nephews by blood and by bond, boys he watched from a distance, in palace courtyards, while old grievances boiled between the elders, boys who learned to salute before they learned wisdom, boys who must have been proud when someone finally handed them armor. Though the armor is always heavier than it looks, one of them shifts his weight from one foot to another, trying to look fierce. For an instant the sight is almost unbearable, because it is so young, because war is full of people trying on adulthood in the worst possible place. Arjuna's mouth goes dry. The dryness is sudden, almost violent. His tongue feels thick. The saliva vanishes. He swallows and gets nothing for it. His lips part, but no ease comes in with the breath. Then the trembling begins. Fine at first, a shiver in the hand, a flutter in the forearm. The body announcing, in its own language, that the mind has reached a cliff. You can feel the heat on his skin now, as if the sun has stepped closer. Sweat slides down his ribs under the armor. The cloth at his waist clings damply. His pulse is no longer a beat, but a knocking. He is Arjuna, great archer, favorite student, hero of impossible contests, the man who hit the revolving target by watching its reflection in water, the one whose arrows seem to think for themselves. And yet, the body is simply a body. Give it enough grief at once, and it rebels like anybody else's. He looks left again and sees Bhishma, then right and sees Drona, then farther and sees more cousins, more elders, more loved and hated faces tangled together beyond untangling. The field tilts, not literally, though it feels literal enough. His skin burns. The phrase is small compared to the sensation. It is not the hot sting of exertion, not the warming of battle fever. It is a strange inward fire, as if the blood itself has become restless under the skin. The armor that should protect him now feels close and wrong. The gold catches the sun and returns it mercilessly. A breeze crosses the open ground at last, but it brings little relief. It carries dust, old grass, elephant musk, the metallic scent of polished weapons, heating in daylight. Arjuna tries to hold steady. He cannot. You see it happen. The great Gandiva bow, never casual in his hand, begins to slip. At first, it is only the tiniest loosening of the fingers. A warrior's grip adjusting, nothing more. Then the fingers fail him. The polished wood slides against his palm. The string hums softly as his hold breaks. The bow drops lower than it has ever dropped in battle or practice. Lower than pride permits, lower than memory can bear. Gandiva falls from his hand, not crashing to the earth with drama, worse. A heavy, helpless slide against the chariot rail, a dull knock of wood on wood. The sound of mastery leaving the body for a moment, because the body can no longer carry it. That sound is small, on a field this vast, almost nothing. Yet, it lands like a thunderclap. Arjuna stares as if he does not know his own hand. His shoulders sag. The strength goes out of his knees with alarming speed. He has spent years readying himself for battle, but no training hall teaches what to do when your enemy line suddenly fills with childhood. He sinks down into the chariot, just sits there in armor, in daylight, between armies. The great warrior folds in on himself like a man struck by unseen weather. Krishna turns slightly, only slightly, enough to look at him fully. Still, he does not interrupt, because Arjuna is not finished falling. The words come rough and low, not shouted, not theatrical, the sort of words that scrape their way out, because staying inside has become impossible. He says that his limbs are failing him. He says his mouth is parched, his skin aflame, his body trembling. He says the bow has slipped from his hand. He says his mind reels. He says he sees no good in this. Not victory, not kingdom, not pleasure. What use is a kingdom, he asks, if it must be bought with the ruin of those for whom kingdoms are desired? You feel the truth of it hit the chariot floor and settle there. This is not philosophy yet. This is heartbreak, doing arithmetic, and hating every result. The wind lifts a corner of the banner overhead. The monkey emblem snaps, once bright and fierce, against the pale sky. From somewhere behind them, a soldier coughs. Somewhere else, a wheel squeals, then stills. The whole war seems to lean toward this chariot, listening. Arjuna keeps speaking. He names the people before him, not as ranks, but as relationships. Teachers, fathers, grandfathers, sons, grandsons, uncles, fathers-in-law, friends. Every word makes the field more human. Every word makes battle harder. He says he does not want the power that would come from defeating them. Not even if the three worlds were offered for such a price, much less this patch of earth everyone has gone mad over. Earth, always earth. Men crossing deserts and mountains for the right to sit on it, tax it, inherit it, defend it, lose sleep over it. Men acting as if a throne were worth more than the people who sit around it at supper. And now Arjuna looks across a continent of sharpened ambition and sees the bill coming due. You can almost hear him thinking of home, not abstract. Home. A corridor turning cool at evening. Draupadi's lamp lit in a quiet chamber. His brothers at meal, each impossible in his own familiar way. Yudhishthira, careful and grave, saying grace over food, while Bhima wonders whether grace can be spoken faster because the lentils are getting cold. Nakula somehow still beautiful after a day in armor, which is frankly irritating to ordinary mortals. Sahadeva silent until he says one precise thing and everyone wishes he had been less precise. Simple things, human things, the things war always claims first, even before the first arrow flies. Arjuna says that even if these men are greedy, even if they do not see the wrong in what they do, should he not see it? Should he not turn away from a deed that would stain the family line and break the old order of the house? His mind runs ahead into the future, and it is all ash. He imagines the elders gone, the rites neglected, the sacred offerings no longer made by sons for fathers, women left unprotected in households, emptied of their pillars, children growing amid broken customs and bitter inheritance, a lineage cracked, a world loosened from its old joints. On this field, before a single arrow has flown, he sees generations trembling. That is part of the agony. He is not only seeing the men before him, he is seeing the empty places they would leave behind. You stand in that chariot with him and feel the scale of it, the impossible multiplication. One elder falls and a household changes. 10 princes fall and a province changes. A whole generation falls, and songs, rituals, recipes, names, duties, memories all begin to slip. War never takes only the man in armor. It takes the hand that would have lit the lamp, taught the prayer, blessed the child, settled the quarrel. No wonder the bow grew heavy. The sky seems too bright now. The white of parasols stings the eye. Bronze fittings flash. Far off, a line of spears glitters like fish in a river. Sweat slips down Arjuna's temple and disappears into his hair. He says there is sin in striking those who should be revered. He says better to live on alms than feast on a kingdom seasoned by the fall of teachers. And there is Drona still, visible beyond the haze. How could he lose on that breast the very skill Drona placed in him? How could he make obedience into the weapon of disobedience? A teacher spends years shaping a student's hand, and now that perfected hand must aim back at the teacher's heart. It is too twisted to accept, too intimate. Then Bhishma again, old Bhishma, the grandfather who kept the kingdom standing through storms that should have broken it long ago. Flawed, yes, bound by vows so severe they sometimes turned human warmth into iron. Yet still the grandsire, still the elder who blessed them, still the one whose presence made childhood feel protected. To strike him would not feel like victory. It would feel like tearing down the roof while standing inside the house. Arjuna says this plainly in his own way. He sees no path through it that does not taste of ruin. You can feel the chariot wood warm under your hand if you place your palm against it. Sun-soaked, smooth in places, rough where the grain rises. A fly lands briefly near the yoke, rubs its legs, departs. Such tiny ordinary things continue. That is almost offensive. The world keeps being the world, while a man's certainty breaks apart. Krishna listens, not impatient, not hurried. He watches Arjuna spend the last of his battle fury and uncover what lay beneath it all along. Love, not mild love, not decorative affection, brought out at festivals and tucked away when inconvenient. The dangerous kind, the kind that remembers people in their many forms at once. Cruel cousin and laughing boy, terrible elder and protective grandfather, teacher and enemy. The heart does not simplify because politics demands it. Arjuna says he would rather be struck down without resistance than raise his own hand against these kin. The words fall into the heat between him and Krishna. Briefly, even the wind seems to wait around them. It is an astonishing thing for a warrior to say on the edge of battle. And yet, when you hear it here, in the cramped space of the chariot, with his breath unsteady and his hand empty, It does not sound weak. It sounds tired. It sounds human. It sounds like the truth a brave man finally admits when courage alone cannot carry him another step, because cowardice runs from danger to save itself. Arjuna is not trying to save himself. He is trying to save everyone at once, and finding that he cannot. That is a different torment entirely. A dry leaf skitters across the ground between the armies and catches against a broken cart pin. Somewhere behind the Kaurava line, a conch gives a low, accidental moan, as if someone has tested the breath and then thought better of it. The note fades quickly. No one moves forward. No one moves back. The whole world has narrowed to one warrior sitting down. Arjuna's shoulders shake once, then still. He sets aside not only the bow, but the will to fight. For the moment, they are the same thing. His gaze drops from the enemy line to the floor of the chariot. The floor bears old scratches from travel, from hastily thrown gear, from the hard use of years. Dust has settled in the grooves. A bit of straw clings near the edge. Such humble details receive the eyes when a man can no longer bear the horizon. He speaks again, quieter now. No triumph can sweeten this. No victory song will wash it clean. If they stand ready to strike for greed, he will not answer greed with arrows. If they come armed against him, he would rather meet that fate empty-handed than carve his way through grandfathers and teachers to a throne already haunted. Then he stops. At last, he stops. The words have gone as far as words can go. He is emptied out. You can almost feel the sudden space left behind when speech ends. It is immense. It hums louder than noise. Krishna remains standing. The reins rest in his hands with perfect ease. The horses feel the stillness in him and settle deeper, ears flicking but bodies quiet. A smear of dust marks one blue-black flank. Sun catches the curve of Krishna's wrist, the line of his cheek, the golden edge of his armor. He looks as calm as a man paused beside a river. But his eyes are on Arjuna, not the armies, not Bhishma, not Drona, Arjuna. This is the real battlefield now, not the plain of Kurukshetra with its elephants and standards and kings. This wooden platform on two wheels, this space between one friend who has fallen inward and another who has not yet begun to answer. The smell of heated leather rises again. The horse's breath comes slow and visible for a moment in the dust-bright air. Far away, a drum sounds once, then nothing. The sun climbs another finger width in the sky. Arjuna sits with head bowed, emptied by grief, his great bow resting where it slipped, his warrior's certainty gone out of him like a lamp pinched between wet fingers. Around them stand armies enough to shake the earth. Inside the chariot, one man has no strength left to lift his hand, and Krishna, holding the reins of the horses and, very soon, something even harder to guide, draws one quiet breath before he speaks. Then Krishna does something Arjuna does not expect. He does not rush to fill the silence. He does not seize Arjuna by the shoulders and shake sense back into him. He smiles, only a little, not mockery, not impatience, nothing sharp in it. It is the kind of smile that appears when someone you love has finally stopped pretending. The kind that says, "There you are, at last." That is the wound. Arjuna lifts his face. His eyes are wet. Dust has stuck to the tracks of tears along his cheeks. His chest still rises unevenly, as if grief has fingers in his ribs and will not quite let go. The great Gandiva lies against the floorboards of the chariot, unclaimed, unthinkable, Krishna looks at him the way a steady flame looks at darkness. And then he begins. He tells Arjuna that this collapse does not become him. Not now, not here. He tells him that what has come over him is unworthy of the one the world calls its finest archer. There is tenderness in it, but no softness. He is not stroking Arjuna's grief. He is drawing a line through it. The horses shift beneath the yoke. Leather creaks, gold fittings click. Somewhere far off, an elephant gives a low, restless rumble, and then even that sound is swallowed by the strange waiting spread across Kurukshetra. You can feel how impossible this is. Two armies poised like drawn breath, banners snapping in the dry wind, men gripping bows with sweaty palms, chariot wheels sunk an inch into the hot earth, and in the exact center of all that heat and iron, one man is being told, very calmly, that he has mistaken despair for wisdom. Arjuna listens. At first, the way a drowning man listens when someone on shore starts talking about the nature of water, not gratefully, not peacefully, just with raw disbelief. Krishna tells him that the sorrow pouring through him sounds noble, but it is tangled in confusion. Arjuna grieves for those he should not grieve for, while speaking as though he understands the deepest things. The truly wise do not drown in mourning for the living or the departed. That lands badly. Of course it does. Arjuna has just named everyone he loves on both sides of the field. Grandfather, teacher, brother, son, friend. He is looking at Bhishma's white banner and Drona's stern face and the 100 familiar shapes of his kin, and his friend is telling him his grief is misplaced. For a moment, you can almost feel Arjuna bristle through the haze. Easy for you to say, you who still stand, you whose hands do not shake, you who have not just watched your whole life split into enemy lines. But Krishna goes on, and his voice never rises. It moves like cool water over heated stone. He says there was never a time when he was not. Never a time when Arjuna was not. Never a time when these kings were not. And there will never come a time when any of them simply cease. It is a strange thing to hear in the middle of a battlefield. The words do not sound like war talk. They do not clang like armor or crack like command. They move differently, deeper, as though someone has opened a hidden door in the floor of the chariot and a wind from another world is rising through it. Arjuna stares at him. The tears do not stop at once. Grief does not politely step aside because truth has entered the room. But something small changes, not relief, not acceptance, attention, that first tiny turn. Krishna tells him to think of the body as something passed through. Childhood to youth, youth to age. One form, then another, then another. The self within moves through these changes while the outer shape alters like garments faded by sun and wash water. So too, he says, does the embodied one pass from one body to the next. The wise are not bewildered by this. A hot wind crosses the field and carries with it the smells of horse sweat, oiled wood, trampled kusa grass, dust, and faint sandalwood from priests who blessed these armies at dawn, as if blessing might somehow tidy what comes next. Arjuna has heard holy words before. He has listened to sages in forest hermitages while smoke rose from sacrificial fires in blue ribbons. He has sat by riverbanks at dusk while old men with bark garments spoke of birth and rebirth, of the self hidden deeper than breath. He is not a fool hearing this for the first time, but hearing it there is different. There, with Bhishma alive and visible, there with Drona's bow in hand, there with his own fingers still cramped from gripping Gandiva too tightly an hour ago. The wisdom he learned beside quiet rivers is being brought to him now in the hottest possible place. No shade tree, no hermitage bell, no patient evening, just sun, dust, iron, and truth, arriving exactly where he hoped it never would. Arjuna's mouth is dry. He swallows and tastes grit. Krishna tells him that the contacts of the senses with the world bring heat and cold, pleasure and pain. They come and go. They do not stay. Endure them. Simple words. Cruel words, if badly timed. Necessary words, if rightly given. The hem of Krishna's yellow garment stirs in the breeze. His hand rests lightly on the reins, and even now the horses trust him. Their white hides shine under dust, their flanks warm and damp, their harness bells still. Arjuna is being asked to do something impossible and ordinary at once. Bear this. Stay here. Do not flee, because the moment burns. That is harder than drawing a bow the weight of a thundercloud. You know that feeling. The body wants to escape before the mind has even formed a decision. Leave the room. Drop the burden. Turn your face away. Sleep instead. Anything but this. Arjuna has done none of those things in battle before. He has charged elephants, faced celestial weapons, stood in storms of arrows thick as monsoon rain. But this stillness, this inward demand, is another kind of courage entirely. Krishna's gaze remains on him. He tells him that the one fit for immortality is not broken by pleasure and pain, by gain and loss, by heat and cold, not because he feels nothing, because he is no longer ruled by every passing touch. Arjuna hears it, and part of him resists. How convenient, he might think, be above pain, while pain is standing in front of you wearing your grandfather's face. And yet, Krishna is not asking him to become stone. That is not the feeling in the chariot. He is asking him to stand in a deeper place than feeling, to find something in himself that the wave cannot drown. The sun is higher now. Heat gathers in the bronze fittings of the chariot until they almost glow. A fly lands on the mane of the nearest horse. One flick of skin, and it is gone. Across the field, pennants ripple red, blue, white, serpent green. Men wait under them in armor, already growing hot enough to sting the skin beneath. Krishna tells Arjuna that the unreal has no lasting being, and the real never slips into non-being. He speaks as if naming something plain, as if this is as obvious as fire being hot or river water being wet. To Arjuna, it is not plain, not yet. His mind is still thick with faces. Bhishma laughing long ago under palace lamps, Drona correcting the angle of his wrist, cousins at festival games, the rustle of silk in Hastinapura's halls, Draupadi's hair unbound in rage, the forest roads, the years of exile, all of it crowds him. But now another thought has entered. What exactly is the I inside all those moments? The child learning to string a bow, the youth winning Draupadi, the exile sleeping on leaves, the warrior trembling now, different bodies, different seasons, different fears, and still the same witness moving through them. That thought does not erase grief. It does something stranger. It creates space around it. Krishna says that the self dwelling in the body cannot be slain when the body falls. Weapons do not cut it. Fire does not burn it. Water does not soak it. Wind does not dry it. The words fall one by one, deliberate as beads on a rosary. Cannot be cut, cannot be burned, cannot be wetted, cannot be dried. On this field, where every man has come clothed in iron and intention, it is a startling list. Every instrument of harm that rules the battlefield is being quietly set outside the reach of what is most real. Sword? No. Flame? No. Flood? No. Wind? No. Everything the world can do stops at the skin. Arjuna looks up more fully now. You can feel the shift if you stand there with him. The tears are still there, but they are not blinding him now. Curiosity has mixed with anguish, a dangerous combination for despair. Once curiosity enters, despair starts losing ground. Krishna tells him that the self is unmanifest, inconceivable, unchanging. It does not come apart when the body comes apart. It does not wrinkle with age. It does not weaken with fever. It does not crack under shame. It does not vanish when breath leaves. Arjuna has spent his life training the body. Wake before dawn. String the bow till the fingers harden. Ride until the thighs ache. Fast, hunt, wrestle. Learn to stand on moving wood and strike a moving target while another moving target is trying to strike you first. A prince's education is not restful. It is sweat and bruises and someone older shouting that your footwork is lazy. And now Krishna is speaking of something the body can never become and never stop being. No wonder Arjuna is listening with that stunned expression. It is like being told in the middle of a house fire that your true home was never made of timber. He does not yet know what to do with that, but he is listening. Far to the left, a conch shell gives a tentative call and is answered by silence. Whoever sounded it is quickly hushed. No one wants to be the fool who accidentally starts the end of an age before Krishna has finished speaking. Imagine being that conch blower for the rest of your life. If you survive at all, that is a story everyone tells at dinner. Stillness settles again. Krishna keeps going. He tells Arjuna that if he believes the self to be constantly born and constantly passing away, even then, grief makes no sense. What is born will end. What ends is born again. This turning is woven into existence itself. Why break apart over what cannot be prevented? Arjuna's brow tightens. This is the place where medicine stings, because grief always thinks it has found an exception. Yes, everyone knows that old age comes and lives end, but not him, not now, not like this, not with my own hand, not on this day. Krishna's words strip away the special pleading, harshly, maybe, lovingly, certainly. He is not trying to help Arjuna preserve his sorrow with better language. He is trying to lift him out of the net entirely. The chariot floor is warm under Arjuna's bare feet. His bowstring hand twitches once against his knee. Dust settles on the dark curls at Krishna's temple. The scent of sun-heated wood rises from the axle, and all around them, the assembled world waits. Kings from distant lands with jeweled helmets, archers from mountain kingdoms, elephant riders with hooked goads, foot soldiers in rough cotton with old scars and new fear, drivers, drummers, standard bearers, boys hardly old enough to shave, and men old enough to have grandsons somewhere in the crowd. They are waiting while one friend explains to another that the thing he fears losing was never contained in flesh. It is almost too intimate for such a place. Almost. Arjuna asks questions now, not in long speeches as before, but in shorter turns of thought, the way a man tests whether his legs will hold after a hard fall. If this self is untouched, why does suffering feel so complete? If wisdom is to stand apart, what becomes of love? If bodies are garments, why does tearing them still feel like tearing the heart? Krishna does not mock any of it. He meets each confusion without hurry. He tells Arjuna that the embodied self passes into new forms, the way a man removes worn-out clothing and puts on new cloth. Old garments are cast aside, fresh ones are taken up. The person remains. A small image, domestic almost. That is part of its power. Not some impossible heaven flash, just clothing. Any servant in any courtyard understands it. Cotton frays, silk stains, linen tears at the shoulder seam. You do not hold a funeral for a robe. You fold it away or cut it for rags and dress yourself again. Arjuna hears it and flinches inwardly because the image is clear and still not enough. No, not enough. Because Bhishma is not a robe. Drona is not a worn tunic. These are men whose hands rested on his head in blessing. Krishna knows that too. You can sense it in the way he continues, not pressing the image too hard, not pretending comparison is identity. He is not saying bodies are worthless. He is saying they are not final. There is a difference, a profound one. The wind shifts. This time, it comes from the Kaurava side and carries the faint smell of elephant musk, campfire ash caught in woolen blankets, metal polished with oil, and the sour edge of human fear trapped too long under armor. Arjuna's breathing slows a little, not because the pain is gone, because he is no longer speaking from inside the pain alone. Krishna tells him that what begins hidden appears for a little while and then becomes hidden again. Before birth, unmanifest. Between birth and departure, visible. Afterward, hidden once more. Why then be shattered by the middle phase as if it were the whole? That thought moves through Arjuna like evening shade moving across stone. Before, unseen. Now, seen. After, unseen. It does not lessen love. Somehow it widens it. The faces lined across the field are no longer only faces. They are windows through which something ancient peers for a little while. Bhishma's frame, old and noble. Drona's severe features under his helmet. The bright, restless life in Duryodhana, twisted though it is. Abhimanyu somewhere behind him, young and blazing, each one a brief lamp around a deeper flame. For a moment, the battlefield feels less like a place of ending than a place where veils have gotten very thin. Arjuna is not calm. Do not make him too holy too quickly. He is still a warrior on the verge of civil war. His jaw tightens. His hands remember the weight of the bow. His stomach still turns when he imagines arrows flying toward beloved faces. But something has changed. He is no longer pleading to escape. He is trying to understand. That is the smile working. Krishna had seen this all along. Arjuna's collapse was not simple fear of battle. He had faced battle many times. It was confusion about what exactly is being defended, harmed, lost, and preserved when a body falls. He had mistaken the visible for the whole truth. Krishna is pulling him gently and relentlessly beyond that mistake. The horses stamp once. A harness ring knocks softly against wood. From some distant row of soldiers comes the tiny metallic sound of a spear butt slipping and being caught before it strikes the ground. Everyone is trying very hard not to be the one who makes the first ugly accidental noise in this enormous sacred pause. Arjuna wipes his face with the back of his hand. Dust smears. The gesture is so human, it almost hurts. A prince, a legend, a man men sing about in campfires and courts. And here he is, sitting on a chariot floor, like someone who has had his heart broken in public. Krishna does not look away from that. He tells him that some behold the self as wonderful. Some speak of it as wonderful. Some hear of it as wonderful. And even after hearing, few truly know it. There is gentleness in that. At last, a little gentleness. Because Arjuna is not being stupid. He is standing where almost no one stands, with immediate action demanded and ultimate truth laid bare at the same time. Most people get these teachings in old age, or in forests, or at least while seated on something more comfortable than a war chariot. Arjuna gets them while the fate of a kingdom waits on whether his fingers close again around a bowstring, not ideal for note-taking. Still, Krishna continues. He tells him the indweller in every body is forever beyond destruction. Therefore, he should not sink into grief over any being. That word matters. Any being, not only the beloved, not only the righteous, all beings. Krishna's vision is wider than clan, wider than side, wider even than this war. Arjuna is hearing a voice that can hold Bhishma and a foot soldier in the same field of care. That is part of what makes it so difficult. He cannot hide in the idea that only his own pain counts. Krishna keeps opening the frame until personal grief no longer fills the whole sky. You can feel that widening if you sit with them. First, the body, then the self, then all beings. The chariot is somehow both tiny and infinite. The wheels rest in dust marked by thousands of tracks. Sunlight flashes off spearheads in long, trembling lines. Heat shimmers above the earth until banners at a distance seem to float in water. And Krishna, still calm, still smiling now and then with that infuriating tenderness, keeps placing thought after thought into Arjuna's burning hands. This one cannot be destroyed. This one is ancient. This one is not born and does not pass. This one does not fall when the body falls. Hear it, hold it, look again. Arjuna does look again, not outward first, inward. That is where the real turning starts. He feels the body that moments ago seemed to be dissolving under sorrow. The dry mouth, the tremor in the limbs, the pounding heart, the heaviness in the arms. He notices, perhaps for the first time since panic took him, that all of these are happening to him, and yet there is also something in him watching them happen. A witness, silent, unafraid, not heroic, not dramatic, just present. It has been there in every contest, every exile, every humiliation, every triumph. It watched when Draupadi was dragged into the hall. It watched in the forest. It watched in Virata's court when Arjuna wore another name and another role. It watches now. Krishna is drawing Arjuna's attention toward that watcher, toward the part that was never defeated even when everything else was. No thunder rolls, no heavens split, no divine weapons blaze. It is quieter than that, more dangerous too. Once a man begins to sense that he is not only the body and not only the storm of feelings moving through it, he becomes much harder to terrify. That is what is happening here, slowly, not completely, but unmistakably. Krishna tells him that if he thinks of himself as the slayer and others as slain, he has not seen clearly. The deepest self neither strikes nor is struck down. There it is, the hardest medicine yet. Arjuna's eyes narrow. This is not easy to hear, because on the level of the field, of course, warriors fall. Of course, arrows find marks. Of course, mothers grieve, empires burn, and kingdoms empty. Krishna is not denying any of that visible world. He is pressing beneath it, into the reality that does not rise and fall with flesh. Arjuna feels the tension of both truths, the world where actions have consequences, and the deeper world where the self remains untouched. He cannot yet braid them together, not yet. That work will take more than a few breaths. But the knot in him has loosened enough for the next teaching to enter. A vulture circles high above the plain, silent against the hard blue sky. Someone in the Pandava ranks mutters a prayer under his breath. A horse snorts and stamps, impatient with philosophy, eager for simpler things like motion, effort, oats. Honestly, the horses are having the most practical morning of anyone here. Krishna speaks of steadiness now, of inner poise, of a mind not dragged around by longing and aversion. He starts sketching the outline of a different kind of warrior, not merely skilled with weapons, but anchored in something no battlefield can touch. Arjuna listens, with his head no longer bowed. That matters. His shoulders are still heavy, but they are no longer collapsed in on themselves. His gaze meets Krishna's and stays there longer. The first shock of the teaching has passed. Confusion remains, so does hurt. But now there is also a strange kind of hunger. If all this is true, then who am I, really? If the self cannot be broken, why have I lived as though every loss ends me? If those I love are more than the bodies before me, what does duty mean now? Those questions are rising. Krishna can see them. He does not answer all at once. He is too wise for that. He knows a shattered mind cannot swallow the ocean whole. So he keeps offering cupfuls. This life is not the whole. What changes is not the deepest truth. What grieves is real, but not final. Stand up inside yourself before you stand up with your bow. The air in the chariot feels different now, lighter, though no less hot. Arjuna bends and reaches, not for Gandiva yet, but toward it. His fingers hover near the polished curve of the bow, as if reacquainting themselves with an old companion after saying something unforgivable. He does not lift it, not yet, but he touches it. A beginning. Krishna sees and says nothing about that. No triumph. No, I told you so. Just the next teaching, offered with the same steady grace. He reminds Arjuna that the wise person does not lose himself in the swing between sorrow and delight. He stands in balance. He does what must be done without becoming the weather passing through him. Outside, the armies remain frozen in this strange, suspended hour. Sweat runs down backs beneath armor. Chariot drivers squint into the sun. Standard bearers shift numb feet on the packed earth. Somewhere, a king with too many jewels and too little patience is probably wondering whether enlightenment always takes this long. Yes, sometimes longer. Arjuna almost smiles, only almost, but the edge of total despair has lifted enough that the possibility of smiling exists again. That is no small thing. Krishna's own slight smile returns when he sees that tiny change. Not because the crisis is over, because Arjuna is back in the world of the living, thinking, feeling, resisting, listening, no longer drowning under the first wave. The teaching has not numbed him. It has awakened him. That is the difference. Numbness would have made him cold. This is making him clear. The sun continues its climb. Light glances off Krishna's crown and the metal rims of the wheels. Fine dust hangs in the air like gold powder. If you were standing there, you would smell warm horsehide, hot leather, the iron tang of weapons, and beneath it all, the dry holy scent of earth that has been prayed over and is about to drink the consequences of kings. Krishna speaks and Arjuna listens, really listens now. The battlefield has not vanished. Bhishma is still there. Drona is still there. The war has not become easier merely because the soul is eternal. But the frame has widened. The panic has loosened. Arjuna has been led step by step from the cry of I cannot bear this toward the quieter, steadier question of what is true beneath what I feel. That question changes everything. The answer is still unfolding. For now, the bow remains on the chariot floor, touched but not raised. The tears are drying on Arjuna's face. Krishna's hands rest easy on the reins. Around them, 1,000,000 waiting hearts beat under armor and silk and rough homespun cloth. And in the burning stillness between two armies, the first medicine has entered the wound. The sun is higher now. Heat gathers on the bronze fittings of the chariot and in the folds of silk at Arjuna's waist. The horses toss their manes and stamp once, then settle again, white flanks shining. Somewhere to the left, an elephant rattles its chain and breathes like a furnace. The whole field waits. Arjuna wipes his face. He sits up straighter. His breathing is less ragged now, though not calm. Not yet. His eyes are red. The bow still lies where it fell, long and curved and far too heavy for a man who has just remembered that every target on this field has a name. He looks at Krishna with the expression of someone dragged from drowning only to discover he is still in the middle of the river. Then he asks the question that opens everything. If the wise see beyond life and death, if the soul cannot be broken, if grief is clouded sight, then what is he supposed to do with his hands, his mind, his duty, this impossible morning? If knowledge is greater than blind action, why fight at all? Why not step away, walk into the forest, and let the kingdoms choke on their own greed? It is not a small question. It lands between them with all the weight of iron. Krishna hears it and does not rush. That is his way. He could split the sky if he wished. Instead, he answers like a friend, untying a knot in another friend's chest, patient finger by patient finger. The reins rest loose in his hand. The peacock feather at his crown stirs in the warm breeze. Dust settles on his dark forearm, and he does not brush it away. He begins with action, not the frantic action of men who cannot sit still, not the fevered action of kings building palaces because silence frightens them. He means the simple fact that nobody alive can remain without acting. Even sitting still is a kind of act. Even refusing is a choice that sends its own arrow into the world. Arjuna listens, brows drawn. Krishna tells him that a man can close his mouth and still burn with craving inside. He can sit cross-legged beneath a tree with half-closed eyes and still be planning victories, pleasures, praises, revenge. He can look like a sage and still be a crowded marketplace in his own head. That lands because Arjuna knows it is true. He has seen holy men in bark garments whose pride was heavier than a warrior's armor. He has seen kings draped in jewels who gave away half their food without being asked. Outer stillness is not freedom. Outer movement is not bondage. The snare is elsewhere, in the grip, in the hunger, in that sticky little word, mine. You can feel the field breathing around them, hot and held back. Sunlight flashes off spearheads in long, trembling lines. A standard bearing the cobra of Duryodhana shifts in the wind. On the Pandava side, Bhima's great chest rises and falls like a bellows. No one moves. No one dares break this pause. Krishna tells Arjuna that he was born for action, but not for slavery to outcomes. Do the work, release the claim, string the bow, draw the cord, let the arrow fly, because it is yours to release truly, not because you own where it lands. Arjuna nearly winces at that. He has lived by results. Every prince is trained that way. Hit the mark, win the contest, defeat the rival, protect your people, gain the kingdom. keep your promise. Results are the language of kings. Results are what make old men nod approval, and drummers beat their palms raw at the city gate. And now, Krishna is asking for something stranger. Act fully, care deeply, but do not chain your peace to what follows. It sounds almost unreasonable. Arjuna says as much, though more sharply than that. His face tightens, his hand brushes the edge of the Gandiva, then pulls away again. He wants to know how action can be pure if desire has been cut out of it. What drives a man then? What keeps the arm strong? What keeps the feet moving? Krishna's smile deepens, just a little. He knows this, friend. He knows that Arjuna does, not learn by nodding politely. Arjuna learns by leaning into the question until it bites. So Krishna gives him an image, a sacrifice fire, not on this battlefield, somewhere quieter, evening, a courtyard washed clean, priests moving in white. Ghee poured in a thin, shining stream. The flame rises, receives, transforms, returns nothing in the same shape. That, Krishna tells him, is how action can be. Offered, not grabbed, not hoarded, not performed like a merchant tallying profit. A deed laid into the fire because it is right to lay it there. The smell of ghee and smoke almost seems to drift through the heat of Kurukshetra itself, as if, for one brief instant, another world overlays this one. You can almost hear the low chanting under the buzz of flies and the creak of leather harness. The battlefield is still a battlefield, but Krishna keeps opening doors in it. Action offered becomes clean. Action clutched becomes chain. Arjuna stares ahead. He can see Bhishma's standard in the distance, silver and pale under the sun. He can see Drona's chariot not far from it. Men he loves, men he may have to bring down. The thought still hurts. Krishna is not taking away the hurt. He is teaching Arjuna how not to let hurt become helplessness. Then he speaks of the one who acts rightly, not because the world applauds, not because reward is promised, not because fear threatens him if he refuses. He acts because the act itself belongs to Dharma, to the order that runs deeper than preference. There is something almost irritating about how calmly Krishna says this. Arjuna has every reason to be overwhelmed. His cousin has gambled away reason. Elders have stood silent before shame. Diplomacy has failed. Armies have gathered like storm clouds. And Krishna, standing there with dust on his feet, speaks as if inner freedom is still available. A less dear friend might have been told to stop smiling. But Krishna is not wrong. That is the problem. Arjuna knows it even while resisting. Krishna tells him about the senses next. This part is harder. Action on a battlefield is one thing. The mind is another beast entirely. He says the senses run outward, chasing sound, taste, touch, praise, beauty, memory, fear. They drag a man behind them if he lets them, like spirited horses, dragging a careless driver over stones. One flash of insult, and he burns. One memory of pleasure, and he aches. One smell, one glance, one soft word, and there goes the mind. Off again. Arjuna snorts at that, despite himself. Because yes, of course, he has spent enough time around warriors to know that men who can face charging elephants will still lose their composure over a sideways look at court. Great heroes, very impressive with bows, completely defeated by their own tempers. The world is full of this. Krishna catches the flicker of humor and keeps going. He gives him the image of the tortoise. When danger comes, the tortoise draws in its limbs and is whole within itself, not stiff, not dead, not fearful in the small way, gathered, protected by something deeper than impulse. Arjuna closes his eyes for a moment, as if trying to feel that in his own body, to draw the scattered parts inward, to stop reaching with mind and grief and memory into every direction at once. You can feel it too if you stand there with him. The heat on your skin, dust touching the damp at the back of your neck, the racket that should have begun by now but has not, and beneath all of it, the strange possibility of withdrawal without retreat, a warrior standing in the center of the world's noise and pulling his senses inward like a lamp shielded from wind. Krishna warns him that mere restraint is not enough. A man can deny himself outwardly and still sit inside, craving like a man smelling sweet rice from another room. The tongue is quiet, the mind is not. Desire sits there, licking its lips. Only when one sees something higher, he says, does the lower lose its hold. That is when Arjuna's face shifts, because now they are no longer speaking only of discipline. Now they are speaking of taste, of what the heart loves most. A child drops a clay toy when offered a living bird. A man stops counting copper when he sees the river of gold at dawn spread across the Ganga. Something fuller displaces the smaller thing. Krishna is asking Arjuna to discover that deeper sweetness. But Arjuna is not ready to float away on beautiful ideas. He wants to know what happens if the mind slips. He wants to know about failure, good, honest, human failure. What of the man who begins the path and stumbles? What of the one who tries to gather the senses, tries to steady the mind, tries to live cleanly, and then gets yanked sideways by anger or longing or old habits? What happens to him? Does he break apart like a cloud torn by wind? Does he lose both the world and the spirit and end with nothing but regret? There is affection in the way Krishna listens to that. Of course, Arjuna asks about the one who fails. Arjuna has excellence in his bones. Men like that are haunted not only by defeat, but by imperfection. They do not merely want the road. They want to walk it well. Krishna tells him not to fear so much. No sincere step is lost. No honest effort vanishes into emptiness. That comforts Arjuna more than he shows. His shoulders drop a fraction. His fingers uncurl on his knee. The war is still waiting. But now, another kind of landscape opens. Knowledge, not book knowledge, not the recited pride of men who can name every meter and still know nothing of themselves. Krishna means the clear seeing that cuts through confusion the way morning sun cuts fog from a riverbank. He begins to widen the world again. He speaks of nature and the self, of matter and consciousness, of the field and the knower of the field, of all these shifting forms, bodies, thoughts, emotions, victories, griefs, rising and falling like dust devils across the plain. Arjuna looks out at the armies. So many banners, so many shining helmets, so many private hopes beating inside men who are trying to look fearless. A line of archers on one side, a row of elephants on the other. The old kings with their necklaces and battle scars. The young ones with peach-soft cheeks trying to hold their jaws hard. Charioteers rubbing reins between nervous fingers. Priests murmuring blessings under their breath. Armor hot enough now to scald the skin beneath it. Krishna tells him all of this is woven from the strands of nature. Changing, mixing, passing, and inside it, aware of it, untouched by its changes, is the self. Arjuna hears it, then pushes back again. If the self is untouched, why does pain feel so immediate? If this world is shifting appearance, why does grief strike so hard? Why does dishonor sting? Why does memory have teeth? Why does love make the hand tremble? Excellent questions. Annoying, if you are trying to give a quick sermon and go home. But Krishna did not choose Arjuna because Arjuna is easy. He chose him because he is alive all the way through. Krishna tells him that confusion comes when the self forgets itself and identifies with what it wears. A king puts on a costume for a festival and starts weeping because the fake crown slips. A man dreams he is poor and wakes clutching his chest, though his house is still around him. Consciousness enters the play and begins to think the costume is the person. That is the dizziness of this world. Maya. Not that the world is nothing, not that the field, the pain, the duty, the love are cheap illusions to be shrugged away. It is subtler than that. The passing thing pretends to be permanent. The role pretends to be the whole self. The wave forgets it is water. As Krishna speaks, Arjuna looks again at the field, and something in his seeing loosens. The armies shimmer in the heat. Standards ripple. Dust hangs in layers. For one strange instant, all the careful divisions, ours, theirs, king, servant, teacher, enemy, cousin, feel like designs drawn with a fingertip across the surface of a river, visible, real enough to matter, but unable to stay. You can feel that dizziness with him. Stand there on the chariot and squint into the light. The rows of men blur at the edges. Sound goes muffled for a breath. Even the war seems dreamlike in that white noon glare. So much pride, so much fear, so much effort spent defending names that will one day be spoken by grandchildren who never saw these faces. Arjuna does not become detached all at once. He's no floating sage on a mountaintop. He's a warrior, sweating in armor, while his dearest friend explains the architecture of reality. So he grabs the nearest practical difficulty. The mind, always the mind. It wanders, resists, leaps, sulks, replays old injuries, imagines future disasters, gets distracted by a glint of metal, a remembered insult, the shape of a cloud. To control it, Arjuna says, seems as hard as controlling the wind. There it is, honest, irritated, exhausted. Krishna laughs, warmly, because this, finally, is language both of them trust. Yes, he says, the mind is like the wind, restless, strong, hard to hold. Anyone promising otherwise is either a fool or has never sat with himself for more than 4 minutes. But it can be trained, by practice, by detachment. The answer is almost offensively simple. Arjuna gives him a look that says very clearly that simple is not the same as easy. Krishna looks back like a man trying not to laugh at his friend while fully intending to keep making his point. And there, on a battlefield full of sharpened steel, they have the most ordinary exchange in the world. One friend says the task is impossible. The other says yes, difficult, still worth doing. The horses flick their ears. A fly lands on the rim of the chariot wheel and rubs its forelegs together as if it too has opinions on mental discipline. The scent of heated leather rises again. Somewhere in the distance, a conch is lifted, then lowered when no signal follows. The whole world is absurd and holy at once. Krishna tells him to bring the mind back each time it strays. Not once, again and again. Like drawing a calf by its rope away from the vegetable patch. Like returning a lamp to upright when the wind tilts it. Like taking a child by the shoulders and turning him gently toward home. Not with hatred, not with despair, with steadiness. That matters. Arjuna has known teachers who train through humiliation, through barked correction, through making a student feel small until skill grows around the wound. Krishna's way is different. Firm, yes, but not cruel. He does not scold Arjuna for having a mind like a mind. He only asks him not to serve it. Then the road opens further still, beyond action purified, beyond knowledge clarified, toward devotion. This is where Krishna's voice changes, not in volume, in warmth. Until now, he has spoken like a physician, a guide, a charioteer who sees farther down the road than the man beside him. Now another note enters, something tender and intimate, like evening light reaching into a room where someone has been weeping. He tells Arjuna that the mind can rest in him, that the heart can turn toward him, that the restless self does not have to climb alone, by effort alone, knuckles white, jaw clenched, trying to scale heaven by personal brilliance. There is another way: love, trust, offering. Arjuna grows very still. This is more dangerous to him than philosophy. A warrior can argue with ideas. Devotion asks for the chest to open. Krishna speaks of those who remember him in all acts, those who offer food before eating, labor before claiming reward, prayer before sleep, victory without vanity, sorrow without despair. Those who carry him inside every ordinary movement until there is no corner of life left godless. The battlefield heat seems to soften around that. You can almost feel a coolness under the skin, like the first hint of evening after a day too bright. The noise of the waiting armies recedes. Even the iron smell seems gentler. For a moment, it is only the two of them, and the strange sweetness of being told, you do not have to hold up the whole sky by yourself. Krishna tells him that even the simplest offering given with sincerity reaches him. A leaf, a flower, a fruit, water, not because the object is grand, because the heart is present. Arjuna knows grand offerings. He has seen kings pour out treasure like monsoon rain for the sake of reputation. Gold dishes, jeweled horses, mountains of grain. Priests called from every direction. Drums, banners, perfumes, thick enough to choke a camel. And now, Krishna says that a little water offered with love is enough. It is almost scandalous, almost funny. The Lord of all worlds apparently does not need a palace account ledger, just presence, just sincerity. Arjuna's mouth twitches. He can imagine Bhima hearing this and asking whether a mountain of sweets counts as devotion if offered sincerely. It probably does. Bhima's path through spirituality has always involved more cooking smoke than abstraction. The thought does Arjuna good. For a heartbeat, the corners of his grief loosen. Krishna sees it and goes on. He tells Arjuna to place every act in him, eat in that spirit, fight in that spirit, give in that spirit, endure in that spirit. Then the act no longer traps. It becomes current, flowing toward the sea. That image takes hold. River to ocean. 1,000 restless streams losing their names in something vast and salt and shining. Arjuna has seen rivers in flood season, swollen and brown, dragging whole tree trunks with them. He has seen them in winter, clear and cold, over stone. He has crossed them on ferries that leaked like old baskets. He knows how every river, no matter how winding, eventually gives itself up. Krishna is asking for that, not self-erasure in bitterness, not collapse, surrender in trust. There is a difference, and Arjuna can feel it. The first is exhaustion. The second is rest. Like a child falling asleep against a parent's shoulder after fighting drowsiness for far too long. The body still warm, the breath finally deepening, the struggle gone, not because danger vanished, but because trust arrived. Krishna tells him that those who fix their hearts on the unmanifest, the formless absolute, also reach the goal. But for embodied beings, That path is hard, very hard, too abstract, too bare, like trying to love the sky without ever once looking at the moon. So he gives Arjuna the nearer path. Love me, remember me, offer your acts to me. If you cannot hold your mind steady always, then practice. If practice fails, perform actions for my sake. If that feels distant, at least release the fruits. He keeps building a staircase for his friend. No contempt, no purity test. If you cannot fly, walk. If you cannot walk, crawl, but come. That kindness nearly undoes Arjuna all over again, not with despair this time, with relief, because somewhere under all his skill, all his titles, all the expectations wrapped around him since boyhood, he is very tired. Tired of deciding alone, tired of being measured, tired of trying to be equal to every impossible demand. And Krishna, who knows this better than anyone, does not ask for perfection before love. He asks for turning. That is all. Turn this way. Again, when you forget. Again when you fall. Again when pride returns. Again when fear speaks louder. Just turn. The wind shifts across the field. It carries the scent of trampled grass, horse sweat, and the faint sweetness of crushed neem leaves from some cart or branch under wheel. Banners snap, sunlight blazes on mail coats. A vulture circles high and black against the blue, patient as fate. Still no one moves. Imagine the discipline of that silence. Imagine 10,000 archers holding their shoulders steady while this conversation continues in the center of the world. Imagine kings sweating inside jeweled helmets while two cousins discuss the fate of the soul, the discipline of action, and whether devotion can hold a man together when duty is tearing him apart. It is almost comical. The largest armed gathering in memory, delayed because one warrior needed spiritual counseling from his charioteer, and not one of them dares interrupt. Krishna speaks now of the person dearest to him, not the most brilliant, not the most severe, not the one who performs miracles in public. He describes someone gentler, free from hatred, steady in joy and sorrow, not swollen by praise, not broken by blame, patient, compassionate, self-controlled, content, the kind of person in whose presence others do not feel threatened. Arjuna listens carefully. This matters to him because he has seen enough power without gentleness to last several lifetimes. He thinks perhaps of Bhishma's greatness, Drona's pride, Duryodhana's fire, Bhima's fury, Karna's wounded splendor. Men of force, men of vows, men of astonishing capacity. But Krishna, speaking softly, with the reins in hand, praises the one who has become broad and calm inside, a man who does not poison every room with his own agitation. Arjuna lowers his gaze. That kind of greatness is harder to boast about. You cannot wear it as armor. No herald announces it. No drum roll for inner balance. And yet, hearing Krishna speak, you know at once which strength lasts longer. Arjuna asks then about worship itself, about those who turn to many forms, many gods, many rituals, many names. Krishna answers without jealousy. All worship rises, all sincere turning reaches upward. But to place the heart wholly, directly, in the source, this simplifies the path. Less wandering, less bargaining, less fear. Arjuna breathes that in slowly. His mind has spent years in strategy. Alliances, betrayals, routes through forests, promises to kings, timing, disguises, vengeance deferred, and vengeance ripening. Simplicity feels almost luxurious. Turn toward me. Offer the act. Let go of the fruit. Know yourself beyond the costume. Bring back the mind when it runs. Love what is highest until lower cravings loosen. Simple, not easy. Krishna never says easy. Arjuna turns and finally picks up the Gandiva, not to shoot, just to feel its weight again. The polished grip fits his hand like memory. The familiar pressure settles into his palm, and with it comes the old self. Not the panicked self of an hour ago, not merely the invincible archer others praise, but something quieter. A man remembering that skill can serve something more than pride. He balances the bow across his knees and keeps listening. Krishna tells him one more thing about action. Even the wise continue to act, not because they need anything from the world, because the world is watching, because people follow what the great embody. If those who understand withdrew entirely, leaving the field to the greedy and the confused, what then? What would guide the rest? Arjuna feels the force of that immediately. He is not a hidden monk. He is Arjuna. Princes copy the angle of his elbow. Young warriors imitate the way he knots his hair before battle. Singers make verses from his victories. Children pretend to be him with reed bows in courtyards. If he abandons action out of bewilderment, bewilderment itself becomes an example. Krishna is not flattering him. He is reminding him that visible lives carry consequence. The thought sobers him. Duty returns, but now less like a whip and more like a shape. Not pleasant, clear. The earth beneath the chariot seems firmer somehow. The wheel ruts in the packed soil. The shadow cast by the standard overhead. The white horses breathing, alive and present. This world, this moment, this role, not ultimate, not trivial. Part of a larger order. You are there with him now. You can feel the roughness of the bow grip if you imagine your own hand closing around it. You can hear the tiny chink of metal where the harness ring touches the yoke. Sweat cools slightly along the spine as a breeze passes. The sun is still fierce, but something inward has become less fevered. Arjuna asks one final time, in another form, whether love truly carries a person through. What of those full of faults? What of those late to wisdom? What of those who come stumbling, stained by error, not serene, not saintly, not impressive in any way? Krishna's answer is immediate. If they turn wholeheartedly, they are not lost. That matters more than spotless history. Turn fully, and the path opens. Even now, especially now. Arjuna closes his eyes, not for long, just long enough to let those words go all the way down. When he opens them, the field is still there. Bhishma still waits. Drona still waits. Duryodhana still burns with ambition somewhere behind ranks of steel. None of that has changed, but Arjuna has been walked through 3 forests. In the first, every tree was action, and Krishna showed him how to move without being entangled by every vine of result. In the second, the trees thinned and the sky opened, and Krishna showed him how the self is wider than the costume it wears. In the third, the path descended toward water, and Krishna showed him that the heart does not have to cross alone. It can lean, it can trust, it can flow. The strangest part is that all 3 paths are one road. Action purified by offering, knowledge clarified by love, devotion steadied through discipline. Krishna has not handed Arjuna separate maps. He has woven a single cord strong enough to pull a drowning man back toward himself. And Arjuna, who began this pause, broken open by grief, now sits upright with the bow across, his knees and his breath no longer running wild. Not finished, not beyond fear, but changed. Krishna looks at him sideways, almost casually, as if they are between errands rather than between armies. There is kindness in that glance, also mischief, the kind that says he knows exactly how much Arjuna has absorbed and exactly how much more remains. Because more does remain, much more. The path through action has steadied the hands. The path through knowledge has widened the mind. The path through devotion has softened the heart. Now something else is coming. Something no teaching about rivers and tortoises and disciplined minds can fully prepare a human being to see. The air itself seems to tighten. The horses lift their heads. Far off, banners ripple in the same wind, as if the entire field feels the edge of what is near. Arjuna's questions are not over, and Krishna, who has answered as friend, guide, and beloved, is about to answer in another way entirely. But Arjuna is not satisfied with calm answers and shining ideas. He has heard about the soul that does not burn. He has heard about action without grasping. He has heard about devotion, surrender, the mind pulled inward like a tortoise drawing in its limbs. And still one question remains, huge and bright and impossible to ignore. Who exactly is holding these reins? The wind moves across Kurukshetra and brings the smell of hot leather, horse sweat, churned dust, and distant ghee smoke from ritual fires burning at the edges of the camps. The field is waiting. So is Arjuna. He turns toward Krishna with a face that has already changed once today. Not broken now, not calm either. Intent. He tells Krishna that his confusion has thinned. The fog has lifted enough for him to understand that the man beside him is not merely a prince, not merely a friend, not merely the cleverest strategist in Bharatavarsha. He says, in essence, that if all of this is true, then he wants to see the truth for himself, not in words, not in hints, not in beautiful teachings. He wants to see Krishna as he truly is, and for a moment, nothing dramatic happens. No thunder, no earthquake, just Krishna standing there on the chariot floor, one hand resting lightly on the reins, as easy as if they were about to ride to a festival instead of through the center of fate. Then he tells Arjuna that ordinary eyes cannot bear what he is asking for. Human sight is built for smaller things. A face, a tree, a bowstring, the line of a mountain at dawn. It is not built to take in the structure of reality all at once. So Krishna grants him another kind of seeing. Divine sight. Just like that. You can almost miss how strange it is. One moment, Arjuna is a warrior in armor, dust on his skin, throat dry, listening to the snort of restless horses. The next, the limits of his senses begin to loosen, like knots untied by invisible fingers. The field does not disappear. It deepens. The air feels suddenly immense, as if every direction has opened another direction inside it. The light changes first. Not brighter exactly, more complete. Gold, white, blue, crimson, colors with no names, colors that seem to carry sound inside them. Arjuna looks at Krishna, and Krishna is no longer only Krishna. He is still there, and yet there is too much of him, too much height, too much depth, too many faces, too many eyes, too many expressions moving at once across a being that now seems larger than the sky and closer than Arjuna's own breath. It begins like trying to watch a lamp become the sun. Then the sun becomes 1,000 suns. Then 1,000 suns are only the first glimmer. You are there in the chariot when it happens. You feel the wood beneath your feet, the faint tremble of the axle, the heat stored in the bronze fittings. But above and around that ordinary touch rises something so vast it makes the skin prickle along your arms. Arjuna sees crowns, countless crowns. He sees garlands, jewels, celestial weapons lifted in innumerable hands. He sees mouths speaking blessings, and mouths singing hymns, and mouths blazing like sacrificial fires, fed with worlds instead of clarified butter. He sees eyes in every direction, eyes like suns, eyes like moons, eyes cool as night rivers and fierce as noonday heat on white stone. He sees all gods gathered there, but not gathered as guests, gathered as parts. He sees Adityas, Vasus, Rudras, Ashvins, Maruts. He sees shining beings and storm beings and ancient sages wrapped in light. He sees serpents with jeweled hoods coiled through the folds of a limitless body. He sees lotuses opening inside thunderclouds. He sees mountain peaks rising where shoulders should be, and every part of it is Krishna. Not beside Krishna, not behind him, not reflected by him. The chariot horses feel it too. Their ears flatten, their powerful necks tremble. One stamps so hard, the harness rings, jolt, and flash. The animals were prepared for arrows, drums, fire, elephants, all the nonsense of kings. They were not prepared for this. No one trains horses for the unveiling of the absolute. The battlefield sound begins to thin, not because it stops, but because it is swallowed. Conches, banners snapping, armor clinking, elephants rumbling, men breathing through their teeth, all of it is suddenly only one strand in a roar so immense. It contains oceans, storm seasons, temple bells, funeral chants, wedding songs, rain on leaves, and the crackle of stars being born. Arjuna stares. He sees within Krishna's body every region of the world. Rivers, forests, cities, mountain chains with snow on their brows, seas rolling under moonlight, deserts breathing heat. He sees the Ganga falling from heaven. He sees monsoon clouds pregnant with rain. He sees fields of rice bending under wind. He sees children running through courtyards. He sees old women turning prayer beads in lamp glow. He sees hermits in caves. He sees kings on thrones. He sees beggars asleep under carts. He sees jackals in the scrub at dusk. He sees ants carrying burdens larger than themselves, which is, if you think about it, a very warrior kind of problem, all of it. Inside Krishna, at once. Time begins to come apart next. Past is no longer behind. Future is no longer ahead. Everything is happening in a single unbearable flowering. Arjuna sees births. He sees first cries and first steps and first milk on a child's lip. He sees mothers bending close, fathers smiling despite themselves, old grandfathers pretending not to cry and failing badly. He sees youth, lessons in courtyards, bows drawn for the first time, hands inked with wedding dyes, the first taste of ambition, the first lie, the first oath. He sees age, bent backs, silver hair, the long patience of those who have outlived their own anger. He sees endings too, but not in crude detail, more like lamps being covered, one after another, while dawn rises elsewhere, one flame gone, another lit, again and again, this endless arriving, this endless departing, and still the form expands. Krishna's bodies are numberless. His ornaments are constellations. His garments are woven from radiance and storm. His breath seems to be wind itself, not a breeze. The moving power inside all breezes, the same breath that stirs lamps in shrines and bends palm trees before rain and sends dust skittering over the plain of Kurukshetra right now. You can feel that dust on your lips, gritty, warm, real, and that is the unnerving part. The field has not become less real. It has become one thread in something endless. Arjuna's hair stands upright, not from fear of losing, not from fear of shame, This is older than those. His body recognizes majesty before his mind can arrange it. He clasps his hands. His voice shakes. He praises what he sees because what else can a human do when the universe opens its many faces and looks back? He sees Brahma seated on the lotus. He sees Shiva's terrible stillness. He sees every divine power he has ever heard, named in childhood stories and sacrificial chants, all dwelling in Krishna as sparks dwell in fire. He sees sages bowing. He sees celestial beings astonished. He sees beings with folded hands entering that blazing immensity just to offer praise. And then the vision changes. Not smaller, darker, the beauty remains, but another aspect turns toward him. Because the universe is not only birth, music, flowers, rain, moonrise, sandalwood paste cooling the skin. It is also ending. It is also time. It is also the taking back of all that it once gave. The mouths become impossible to ignore. Until now, they have been part of the splendor, bright and many. Now Arjuna sees what they are doing. They are consuming. Their teeth blaze like the edges of worlds picking apart. Tongues of flame curl through them. Into those mouths, rivers of beings are streaming. At first he thinks he is mistaken. Then he sees clearly warriors, kings, princes, charioteers, elephants with gold bells and red cloths on their backs, horsemen leaning forward with spears, foot soldiers carrying shields that glitter for an instant before vanishing into light and fire. The armies of Kurukshetra are rushing into Krishna's burning mouths as rivers rush into the sea, as moths fling themselves into a lamp. Not one side, both, always both. This is not partisan fire. Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Duryodhana, the sons of Dhritarashtra, the allies from distant lands who marched here under banners they loved and trusted, all of them. Arjuna sees them already entering, already claimed, already overcome by a future that, in this vision, is no future at all. He sees helmets flash and disappear. He sees standards topple into radiance. He sees wheel rims spin into brightness and are gone. He sees names become sparks. This is the moment that freezes him in a deeper way than grief ever did. Before, he could not bear to strike those he loved. Now he sees something more terrible. They are already within time's hunger. The war is not creating mortality. It is revealing it. The smell of the field presses in again for one strange instant. Sun-baked dust, hot metal, horse breath, the faint sweetness of crushed kusa grass under wheels. It is almost a mercy, that ordinary smell, a tiny human anchor, while everything else opens into infinity. Arjuna trembles. His mouth goes dry again, but not with the dryness of sorrow. This is the dryness of standing too close to a sacred fire, too close to something your nerves do not know how to survive. He tries to make sense of what he sees. He cannot. He praises Krishna as the source of all. He calls him the oldest being, the refuge of the world, the knower and the known, the resting place of everything. He sees no beginning, no middle, no end. Imagine trying to look at a mountain and discovering it contains the whole sky. Imagine listening to a flute and hearing oceans inside one note. Imagine recognizing your friend and not recognizing him at all. That is where Arjuna stands, or kneels, or tries to do both at once. His limbs are no longer taking orders properly. He sees Krishna's light touching the heavens. He sees the spaces between earth and sky filled completely. There is nowhere the form is not. East, west, zenith, nadir, all directions overflowing. Even the brave among the unseen beings The gods and spirits and shining hosts seem shaken by the sight. Some rush toward it in adoration. Some stand at a distance, astonished. Some bow, some praise. Some simply endure the brightness. Arjuna cannot endure it for long. He asks then, in fear and reverence tangled together, who this fierce form is, and the answer comes from everywhere at once. Krishna reveals himself as time grown old enough to devour worlds. The force before which cities crumble, vows fail, lineages thin, proud men bow, children become elders, and even memory fades from stone. He tells Arjuna that the warriors assembled here are already brought down. Arjuna is not being asked to invent the ending, only to participate in it. Be the instrument. That is the instruction. A terrible comfort. A comfort anyway. Because it means the burden Arjuna tried to carry entirely on his own was never entirely his. The field was moving toward this before his bow was strung. The vows, insults, silences, greed, loyalty, duty, blindness, stubbornness, all of it has flowed here like rainwater, finding a low place. And now time stands in front of him, wearing his dearest friend's face and also 10,000 other faces. You are in the chariot as this truth lands. The leather of the reins creaks softly. The horses toss their manes, foam gathering pale at their bits. Somewhere far off, an elephant cries out, confused by a silence that is not silence. Heat shimmers over shield rims, and inside that ordinary battlefield noon, infinity keeps opening. Arjuna bows lower. He begins to remember every easy moment he ever had with Krishna. Shared meals, laughter, teasing, a hand thrown around his shoulder, arguments over tactics, resting under trees, calling him by familiar names, speaking carelessly as friends do, because friendship allows a kind of holy laziness. You stop being formal, you stop measuring every word, you sprawl, you laugh, you say things you would never say to a king or a teacher. And now, in front of this immeasurable form, Arjuna feels the shock of all that intimacy. He has joked with the infinite. He has told the Lord of worlds to pass the salt. A very human problem, almost funny if he were not shaking. He asks forgiveness for every time he treated Krishna as merely his companion. Every time they lay on the same bedroll and talked, late, every time he spoke casually in private or before others. He does not regret the friendship, not at all, but now he sees its true depth, and awe pours into all those remembered moments, like monsoon water filling old riverbeds. He bows like a tree in heavy wind. Again, again, still Krishna blazes. Arjuna praises him as father of the world, teacher of teachers, greater than all greatness. No one equals him. No one surpasses him. The words pour out because language is trying, very bravely, to hold a flood in clay pots. It does not fully work, but the attempt is beautiful. Then the terror sharpens. The form is too much, not evil, worse for a human nervous system, total, too complete, too unhidden. If beauty alone had appeared, perhaps Arjuna could have drowned sweetly in it. But this is beauty with fangs, compassion with fire, creation with destruction braided through it. Krishna is not showing him half of reality. He is showing him the whole. And the whole is more than a man can bear for long. So Arjuna begs, not for victory, not for kingdom, not even for peace. He asks Krishna to become again the form he knows, the crowned, gentle, four-armed divine form first, then, beyond even that, the familiar, beloved form, the charioteer, the friend, the one whose smile can be read by human eyes. He asks with the desperation of a swimmer who has seen the full depth of the ocean and suddenly misses the shore. The field waits. The blazing does not cease immediately. For a heartbeat that seems longer than dynasties, Krishna remains vast. Then, slowly, he begins to draw the vision inward, not collapsing, gathering. The thousand faces fold toward one. The endless eyes dim from sunfire to starlight, from starlight to lamp glow, from lamp glow to the warm dark brilliance of Krishna's own familiar gaze. The innumerable arms withdraw. Celestial weapons fade like lightning receding beyond far hills. Crowns become one crown. Garlands become one garland fragrant with forest flowers and tulsi. The roar softens. Oceans return to being distant memory inside the blood. The heavens step back into their proper heights. Time itself seems to inhale and then sit down quietly, as if embarrassed by how much space it was taking up. You can almost hear the world settling back into place. Harness bells, a horse snorting, silk moving against armor, the flap of the banner above the chariot, Hanuman restless in the wind, dust crossing sunlight in pale sheets. The ordinary sounds return first, then the ordinary scale, and there he is, Krishna, not diminished, never diminished, but mercifully knowable again, dark skin with the sheen of storm clouds before rain, eyes bright and soft, the peacock feather lifting gently in the breeze, the same mouth that had just contained worlds, now curved in reassurance. He tells Arjuna not to fear. What he has seen is hard even for gods to behold. It cannot be reached by ritual alone, or gifts, or severe austerities performed with a proud spine and a hungry ego. It is granted through devotion, through grace, through love, fierce enough to survive truth. And because Krishna understands exactly how far Arjuna's mind has been stretched, he does not leave him staring into that abyss. He stands before him in the gentle form of a friend, like a parent lowering a lamp for a child after showing him the festival. Fireworks were only light, not monsters. Arjuna breathes, really breathes. It feels like the first full inhale since the vision began. His chest hurts with it. His hands are still shaking, but less now. His hair slowly settles. The world becomes manageable again. Chariot rail under his palm. The weight of his bracelets, sweat drying on his neck. The smell of horses and dust and sun-warmed wood. These things matter suddenly. They are the small steps by which a man returns to himself after standing at the edge of the limitless. He tells Krishna that seeing the gentle, human form again steadies him. His mind comes back to its place. The terror recedes, though it does not vanish entirely. Some fear remains, but it has changed flavor. It is no longer the fear of loss. It is reverence, and underneath it, something else, clarity, because the vision has not merely frightened him, it has rearranged him. Before this, Arjuna knew Krishna in layers: friend, cousin, ally, counselor. He had heard the deeper claims and felt their truth pressing at the edges. Now the edges are gone. He has seen origin and ending in the same body. He has seen warriors not simply as men about to fight, but as beings carried inside a cosmic movement no mortal hand can stop. That does not make the coming war pleasant. It does not make grief unreal. It does not erase love. Bhishma will still be Bhishma. Drona will still be the teacher, whose praise Arjuna once treasured more than gold. Karna will still blaze like a sun over the field. Duryodhana will still stand with all his fury and wounded pride and iron certainty. All of that remains, but Arjuna has now seen where all banners go when the wind is finished with them. He has seen where all names go. He has seen mouths of fire beyond victory and defeat. He has seen that Krishna, the one holding the reins, is not a clever prince steering events from the side. He is the field, the hour, the witness, the devourer, the refuge, the beginning that has no beginning. Try sleeping after that. And yet, strangely, it calms something in him. Because uncertainty shrinks in the presence of immensity. Not completely, but enough. He no longer has to pretend that his little individual will is the axle on which all existence turns. It is not. Thank the gods. Imagine the paperwork otherwise. He has a role, a fierce one, a sorrowful one, but still only a role. The greater weaving is not his to control. The wind moves again over Kurukshetra. From the Kaurava lines comes the distant jingle of bridles and the mutter of men waiting too long in armor. From the Pandava side, a standard creaks. Somewhere, a conch is lifted, then lowered again. Not yet. The whole plain feels like a lung held full. You are back in the chariot with them. The sun is warm on your shoulders now, almost heavy. Dust settles into the folds of cloth. A fly worries the flank of a horse and is flicked away by a muscular twitch. So ordinary, so blessedly ordinary. And yet, nothing is ordinary anymore. Arjuna looks at Krishna with a new kind of devotion, not distant now, more intimate. That is the odd sweetness of it. The vision did not push Krishna away into cold majesty. It made his nearness unbearable and precious at the same time. The one who contains all worlds is also the one who drove the chariot into the middle because his friend asked. What do you even do with that? For the moment, Arjuna simply receives it. Krishna, seeing him steadier, speaks again in the softer current now. He tells him that this form was difficult to behold and difficult to deserve by effort alone. What reaches him is not pride, not scholarship, not the stiff performance of holiness, but wholehearted devotion. To love him, to act for him, to see him as the highest aim and rest the heart there. That is the path by which one comes near. The words land differently after the vision. Before, devotion might have sounded sweet. Now, it sounds necessary. Because once you have seen everything rushing into the mouth of time, you understand why a heart would want something deathless to cling to. The armies remain where they are. Bhishma still waits beneath his banner. Drona still stands wrapped in discipline and memory. Karna still burns somewhere out there, not yet fully entered into the day's fate, but already shining toward it. Duryodhana still grips his pride like a weapon forged just for him. The wheel of war has not stopped turning because one warrior saw the truth. It merely paused long enough for him to become able to face it. That is what this vision has done. It has not spared him action. It has made action possible. Arjuna sits very still. The Gandiva rests nearby. He has not yet lifted it. That comes soon. For now, he lets the ordinary shape of Krishna fill his eyes again. The curve of shoulder, the hand on the reins, the yellow silk touched by dust from the battlefield floor, the peacock feather, the calm. After what he has just seen, that calm is astonishing. Krishna looks like a man who could guide horses through a crowded street without bumping a cart, which, to be fair, he probably could. Perfectly, with one hand, while explaining reality. Arjuna almost smiles through the aftershock. Almost. The terror has not gone so far that humor can fully rise, but some small human warmth returns. That matters, because the next thing required of him will require not only understanding, but steadiness. The universal form recedes into memory, though not into distance. It is now behind Krishna's human face, the way the ocean stands behind a wave, hidden but not absent. Above them, the banner snaps sharply. The horses settle. The chariot floor is firm beneath their feet. Sunlight glances off arrowheads across the plain and makes the battlefield look for one strange heartbeat, almost beautiful. A dangerous beauty, the kind that exists in storms seen from temple steps. Arjuna lowers his clasped hands. His breathing evens. The vision remains in him like afterlight behind closed eyes. He has seen the worlds arise and dissolve. He has seen beloved men already moving toward their ends. He has seen time eating kingdoms. He has seen his friend as the measureless whole. And now the whole has made itself small again out of kindness. That kindness will carry him through what comes next. The field is still waiting. The conches are still silent. But not for long. Krishna gathers the reins lightly. Arjuna, still trembling at the edges, sits straighter. And the vastness he has just witnessed does not vanish. It folds itself into the space between two friends on a war chariot, into the smell of dust and leather, into the patient shift of 4 white horses, into the beating heart of a warrior who has looked into the mouth of the universe and come back able at last to listen. The light fades, the 1,000 suns dim to one, and in the chariot there are just 2 friends again, not the devourer of worlds now, not the blazing mouths full of kings and centuries, just Krishna, dark and calm, one hand on the reins, the peacock feather stirring in the hot wind. Arjuna stares at him the way a man stares at his own house after surviving a flood. Familiar, beloved, entirely changed. The air feels smaller again, breathable. The smell of horse sweat returns. Leather, dust, a faint sweetness from crushed jasmine garlands, hanging from standards that will not look so festive by dusk. Across Kurukshetra, armor glitters. No one moves. 1,000,000 men wait, while one man learns how to stand up inside himself. You can feel the strange mercy of this pause. The field should already be thunder. Instead, there is only the soft champing of bits, the flap of banners, the occasional stamp of a restless hoof. Krishna lets silence do some of the work. He does not hurry Arjuna. After what Arjuna has just seen, hurry would be absurd. You do not pour the ocean into someone's eyes and then demand immediate paperwork. Arjuna's hands are still trembling at the edges. Not much, just enough to show he is still human, which at this moment is honestly an achievement. His mouth is dry. His bow lies near his knee. He is listening with the whole of himself now. Krishna begins again, and his voice has changed back into the intimate tone of a friend speaking close enough to be heard over breathing horses. He speaks of the world as it feels from the inside, not with the shock of lightning now, but with the patience of cool water. He tells Arjuna that all beings move through nature the way fish move through a river. Most do not even know the current is carrying them. They think their impulses are freedom. They think their moods are truth. But nature has threads in it. 3 strands, 3 powers winding through every heart, every appetite, every choice. Arjuna has felt them all. So have you. Krishna names the first as heaviness, tamas. It is the weight that settles over the limbs before dawn when the body refuses to rise. It is stale air in a shuttered room. It is smoke that clings to cloth. It is forgetting, delay, confusion. The thick, sweet trap of sleeping when life is calling. You know that feeling. The mind says later. The body says not yet. The soul says something is wrong, but the fog is too heavy to shape into words. That is tamas. On this field, it would look like throwing down the bow and refusing to move at all. Not out of peace, out of collapse. There is a difference. Krishna does not mock that heaviness. He simply names it, which is sometimes the first kindness. The second strand burns hotter. Rajas, restlessness, hunger, the itch to act, acquire, build, grasp, win. The heat in the chest when pride is touched. The pulse that says more, more, more. It smells like sun on metal and horses foaming at the mouth. It sounds like drums before dawn and the sharp cry of men lifting banners. Rajas built palaces. Rajas started this war. Rajas cannot sit still even long enough to hear its own heartbeat. Duryodhana is steeped in it, but he is not alone. Every king glittering out there, wrapped in silk and ambition, has tasted it. Arjuna too. He is no monk from the forest who wandered into the wrong event. He loves excellence. He loves victory earned cleanly. He loves the clean sing of a bowstring and the cheer after a target splits dead center. Rajas can make a hero. It can also make a fool. Then Krishna speaks of the third strand, sattva, clarity, not laziness, not fever, a cool morning mind, the hour just before sunrise, when the river looks silver and every bird call seems placed exactly where it belongs. Sattva is lightness without drifting away, peace without sleep, wisdom that does not need to shout. It smells like wet earth after night, rain. It feels like clean cotton on freshly bathed skin. It sounds like temple bells before the market wakes. You can almost feel it moving through the chariot as Krishna speaks, because his presence itself has always carried that quality, even when he is teasing, even when he is planning 3 moves ahead, even when he is driving straight into catastrophe. Arjuna listens. The lesson is not that one strand exists alone. No one gets so lucky. The 3 twist through everyone. Even a wise man grows tired. Even a brave man becomes ambitious. Even a noble heart can sink into fog. Krishna tells him that food has these qualities. Worship has them. Charity has them. Speech has them. Courage has them. Happiness itself comes in these flavors. There is a happiness that begins sweet and ends bitter. There is another that begins bitter and ends sweet. There is the heavy comfort that only makes you duller, and there is the clean joy that asks effort first. The battlefield stretches around them, hot and shimmering, while Krishna speaks about things quieter than battle and more difficult to conquer. The self, the habits of mind, the hidden taste of desire. You are there in the chariot with them, dust touching your ankles, hearing a prince learn that the greatest struggle was never only with cousins and steel. It was with the forces inside his own chest. A breeze moves over the plain. It carries the smell of trampled grass and elephant musk and sandalwood oil warming on armor. Far away, a conch gives a small accidental moan as someone adjusts his grip. Then silence again. Krishna goes on. He tells Arjuna that a man shaped by sattva rises toward clarity. A man seized by rajas returns again and again to restless striving. A man drowned in tamas sinks into darker confusion, as if walking deeper into a moonless forest where every path feels like the same path. But he does not leave Arjuna there, sorting people into neat little jars. That would be too easy. And nothing on this chariot has been easy. He tells him that even sattva, beautiful as it is, can still bind. A man can become attached to purity, attached to knowledge, attached to being the calmest person in the room. which, if you have ever met a person very proud of being humble, is a truly exhausting experience. Arjuna almost smiles. Almost. The corner of his mouth shifts. Krishna sees it. Of course he sees it. The world has not become less grave. But some knot in Arjuna loosens. Because Krishna is not asking him to become some pale, untouchable saint floating above life like sandalwood smoke. He is asking for something stranger. Act. See clearly. Do not cling. Move through the gunas without letting them own you. Stand in the fire without becoming fire. That is harder than simply running away to a cave and announcing victory over desire while somebody else handles the family disaster. Krishna has opinions on fake renunciation, and they are not subtle. He reminds Arjuna that no one escapes action by refusing to act. The world keeps moving. Breath moves, thought moves, hunger moves. Even sitting still can be a choice soaked in consequences. The trick is not escape. The trick is offering. Take what you do and place it in something larger than your ego. Fight if fighting is yours to do. Rule if ruling is yours to do. Teach, plow, serve, protect, pray. But do it without fastening your whole soul to applause, gain, outcome, or fear. The horses flick their ears as if they too have heard enough about attachment to results and would like a guaranteed basket of grain. Poor creatures. They were born into philosophy by accident. Krishna speaks of work born from nature. Some are drawn to knowledge, some to protection, some to trade, some to service. Not because one life is glittering and another is dull, but because people are made differently, the way forests hold neem and mango and bamboo all at once. Arjuna's nature is not hidden. It has never been hidden. He is a warrior so thoroughly that even his grief took the form of refusing war on moral grounds, rather than forgetting how to hold a bow. Krishna says it plainly. Better one's own duty, even if done imperfectly, than another's done beautifully. A flame may flicker and smoke, but it is still fire. Every path in this world has some flaw in it, as every cooking fire sends up smoke. That does not mean you stop cooking and starve elegantly. This lands deep, because Arjuna has been trying, ever since the bow slipped, to climb out of himself, to become suddenly something else, a hermit, a beggar, a saint who leaves the kingdom to men less tender. But Krishna knows him too well. That is not peace waiting for Arjuna. That is disguised despair. You can feel the heat of the earth now. It rises through the wheels, through the soles of your feet, through the wood of the chariot. Sweat gathers beneath arm rings and under the collar. A fly lands on a horse flank and is snapped away with a shiver. Time is moving again, even though the armies still wait. Krishna turns from nature to the soul's road. This part comes softer. After the storm of the universal form, he speaks now almost like a mother settling a child after fever. He tells Arjuna that embodied life passes from form to form. The one who dwells within does not end when the garment tears. Bodies are taken up and set aside. A traveler changes clothes after a long journey. A householder removes festival silk and puts on plain cotton at night. The body is precious. It is not ultimate. This truth does not erase grief. It makes grief wider, less suffocating. Because if those who fall on this field are not annihilated, then the horror is not the final word over them. Krishna describes those who remember the divine at the final moment, those whose minds have been trained toward what is highest, those who move onward through brightness. and those who circle back through shadow and desire. He does not make it sound like a clerk's ledger. He makes it sound like a road shaped by what the heart has practiced all its life. Where attention goes, being follows. What a person loves, truly loves, becomes a direction. And Arjuna, hearing this, must feel the whole of his life gather behind him. Lessons with Drona, long years of discipline, vows, failures, acts of generosity, bursts of rage, moments of worship, hours beside Krishna under open skies. Nothing is wasted. Nothing disappears. Even confusion can become a doorway if it drives a man toward truth hard enough. You sit there with him and feel the battlefield and the cosmos pressing into one point. Sweat on the neck, sunlight on brass. And beneath all that, this immense tenderness. You are more than your panic, more than your body, more than this one impossible day. Krishna returns again and again to devotion, not because Arjuna is stupid, not because knowledge has failed, because after knowledge strips illusion away, the heart still needs somewhere to rest. Krishna has shown Arjuna the machinery of existence, the immortal self, the currents of action, the rise and fall of qualities, the blazing architecture of the universe. And still, in the end, he brings him back to love. Remember me, offer to me, hold me in your mind, act for me, bow inwardly, if not with your body. He says that even the simplest act, if given with sincerity, reaches him. A leaf, a flower, water, a heart that finally stops pretending it can carry everything alone. This is not the language of a distant god demanding perfect ritual while men sweat and break beneath duty. This is intimate, near, almost shockingly gentle on a field built for ruin. Arjuna has known Krishna in many ways: cousin, friend, diplomat, co-conspirator in impossible plans. The man who can enter a hostile court and smile as if he were attending a wedding. The one who steals butter in childhood stories and kingdoms in adulthood strategies. And now, unmistakably, the divine center of all that exists. It would be easy for that realization to create distance. Instead, Krishna closes it. He tells Arjuna that the dearest person is the one who turns toward him wholly, the one free of malice, steady, compassionate, unshaken by praise or blame. Not because such a person has become cold, but because he has anchored deeper than opinion. You can almost feel Arjuna testing these words against the shape of Krishna himself. Yes, this is how he lives, in courts, in exile, in danger, in laughter, always present, never trapped, always acting, never entangled. The teaching is becoming not just instruction now, but invitation. Be like this. Come with me into this way of being. The light shifts slowly toward afternoon. Standards throw shorter shadows. Somewhere, an elephant gives a low, irritated rumble. The sound rolling over the field like distant monsoon. Thunder. Still no signal to begin. It is astonishing, really. The greatest warriors in the world, all standing under the sun while two men finish speaking about the fate of the soul. No one in either army would ever admit this patience later. But there it is, Kurukshetra, waiting like a held breath. Krishna speaks of faith, how every person's faith grows according to his nature. Some worship with clarity, some with heat and ambition, some out of fear, confusion, appetite, darkness. Even austerity can be twisted. Even sacrifice can become vanity in sacred clothing. A man can torment his body and call it holiness. A man can give charity with one hand while the other hand counts reputation like coins. Krishna strips all that away. He keeps bringing Arjuna back to intention. What is the center from which you act? What are you feeding? Fog, fire, or light? Then he gathers all of this into renunciation. Not the renunciation Arjuna first reached for, the dramatic dropping of weapons, the weary fantasy of walking into the forest and leaving history to sort itself out. No, Krishna speaks of the deeper renunciation. Do what must be done. Give up possessiveness. Give up the fever for reward. Give up the little tyrant voice that says, I'm the sole doer. I control this. I own the result. Act cleanly. Offer the act. Release the claim. If that sounds simple, try it for one afternoon. You quickly learn how deeply the hunger for results runs. Arjuna knows this now. He has seen too much to imagine that ego is a reliable charioteer. Krishna tells him that knowledge, action, the doer, understanding, steadiness, happiness, all of these were the colors of the three gunas. A clear understanding sees one reality in all beings. A restless understanding divides and clutches. A darkened understanding mistakes fragments for the whole. Steadiness can hold the mind, breath, and senses firm in yoga, or it can cling to success, or it can simply sleep through life and call that contentment. Happiness too can deceive. Some joy tastes bitter at first and sweet later, like medicine that heals. Some begins sweet and leaves ash in the mouth. Some is only numbness with perfume on it. Arjuna has lived all three: palace pleasures, victories, exile's hard discipline, friendship, humiliation, the long clean ache of training, the poison sweetness of revenge imagined but delayed, the quieter sweetness of sitting beside Krishna under a tree with no one asking either of them for anything. The teaching is no longer abstract. It is falling into places in him that were waiting. You can feel it, the way a key turns not loudly, but exactly. Then comes the final tightening of the thread. Krishna tells him to fix his mind fully, to become devoted, to sacrifice all acts inwardly, to bow with the whole heart. He says Arjuna is dear to him. Dear, on this field of banners and sharpened steel. That word lands like cool water on stone. Dear, not useful, not merely necessary, not instrument alone, loved. That matters. It matters because duty without love becomes iron. Love without duty becomes helplessness. Krishna has been forging the two together. Arjuna's shoulders ease. The terrible tension that made him collapse has changed its shape. It is still there, but it is no longer a knot. It is a drawn bow. Now Krishna gives him the last and deepest offering. He tells Arjuna to set aside every smaller framework that has become tangled and bewildering, every frantic attempt to solve this by intellect alone, every anxious sorting of one duty against another, until the mind ties itself into rope. Come to me, take refuge in me. He says, do not fear. The words seem to settle over the chariot like shade, not because the problem has become pretty, not because war has vanished, but because fear is no longer going to drive the decision. The smell of hot dust drifts up again. Somewhere close, one of the white horses tosses its head and the harness rings softly like tiny bells. You are so near the beginning now that the silence itself feels taut. Arjuna lowers his eyes, not in shame, in absorption. A long moment passes, then another. Krishna has said everything. The field waits, the kings wait, the dead, perhaps, already wait. But in the chariot, there is this stillness, this human stillness after revelation, when language has ended and truth has to sink from the mind into the bones. Arjuna breathes in, breathes out. The trembling is gone, not erased by magic. Mastered, a very different thing. He looks at his hands, the same hands that shook, the same hands that could not imagine raising a bow against Bhishma and Drona, the same hands that have worshipped, fought, embraced, fed, served. They are still his, only the confusion has thinned. He remembers who he is. This is not memory like recalling a name. This is deeper. Memory as restoration. Memory as the soul returning to its seat after wandering in smoke. He tells Krishna that the delusion has broken. His memory has returned. He stands inwardly firm now, free from doubt, ready to do as Krishna has guided him. It is not a shout, not a speech for the armies, just the steadiness of a man finally aligned. And because this is Arjuna, because even now his movements carry the grace of long discipline, the next gesture is simple. He reaches for the Gandiva, that bow, the old companion, the impossible weapon that had slipped from his hand when grief made his limbs fail. His fingers close around it. This time, it does not slide. It belongs there. The wood is warm from the sun. The grip is familiar, rough where it should be rough, smooth where years of use have polished it. The string hums faintly as he lifts it, like a living thing pleased to be remembered. You can almost feel the weight of it settle into balance across his palm and forearm. Not burden now, extension, Arjuna rises in the chariot. Not dramatically, just fully. The warrior has returned, but not the same one who arrived. Before, he was full of skill and sorrow. Now he is full of sorrow and clarity. That difference will carry an army. Krishna watches him. No triumph, no smugness. Only that deep, unreadable calm, touched with affection. He gathers the reins with both hands. The 4 white horses feel it immediately. Their ears sharpen, muscles tighten beneath gleaming skin. They know before the men on the field know. Animals often do. Wind runs over Kurukshetra. Banners crack. Sunlight flashes on helmets, on spearheads, on gold-trimmed harness, on the edges of wheels waiting to bite the earth. In distant ranks, men straighten. Hands go to conches. Drummers lift their sticks. The pause is over. You are standing there in the breath before sound, tasting dust on your tongue, the whole plain shimmering in heat, and the 2 figures on the chariot seem for one heartbeat to hold the balance of the world between them. Krishna lifts his conch, Panchajanya, pale as sea foam, curved and gleaming. Arjuna lifts his own, Devadatta. The same hands that once slackened now hold steady. And then they blow. The sound tears open the waiting day. It rolls over the field, over elephants and chariots and ranks of archers, over princes and foot soldiers and old men who should have retired years ago, but somehow ended up here in armor under a savage sun. Panchajanya sings first, sharp and sovereign. Devadatta answers, Bhima's great conch will follow, Yudhishthira's, Nakula's, Sahadeva's, a storm of sacred sound. But this first call belongs to the charioteer and the archer, friend and friend, God and man, the teacher and the one who was ready, at last, to hear. The blast shakes the dust from banners. Birds rise from the dry grass at the field's edge. Somewhere in the opposing lines, hearts stumble, because conch shells do more than announce battle. They announce certainty, and certainty has returned to Arjuna. The wheels lurch, the horses surge forward, leather strains, bronze rings, axles groan. Dust leaps up in a golden cloud around the chariot. Kurukshetra begins to move. The long stillness breaks into thunder. Men shout, drums answer, standards tilt and recover. The earth itself seems to brace, but the deepest thing has already happened. Not the first arrow, not the first fallen king, not the opening clash of metal and tusk and wheel. That comes now. Yes, it cannot be stopped. Yet the true turning came here, in this chariot, in the interval between despair and action, between seeing the universe devour all things and still choosing to lift the bow with a clear heart. The war that follows will be vast, terrible, full of vows kept too long and promises broken too late. Grandfathers will fall, teachers will fall, sons, brothers, friends. The earth will drink deeply before peace returns. But the song has ended. Its answer has been given. The rest is the echo of that answer through 18 days of dust. Krishna leans into the reins. Arjuna sets an arrow to string, and around them, the field erupts at last into the sound it had been swallowing all morning. Conches, drums, wheels, hooves, the hiss of arrows entering air. Yet somewhere beneath that rising storm, if you listen closely enough, you can still hear the softer sound that came first. A friend saying, "Do not fear," a warrior remembering, a hand closing firmly around a bow. So after all of that, after the tears, the teachings, the thousand suns and the silence, what were the ancient storytellers trying to tell us? Something very simple and very hard. They were trying to tell you what to do when life places you between two armies and every path hurts. That is why Arjuna matters so much to us. Not because he is flawless, not because he is the greatest archer with the finest bow, and a god for a charioteer, though that is certainly more help than most people get. He matters because he breaks. He sees the people he loves on both sides, and his strength turns to water. His mouth dries, his hands fail, his certainty vanishes. He cannot move, and that collapse is not treated as weakness. It is treated as human. That is the first gift of this song. It does not laugh at compassion. It does not call tenderness a failure. Arjuna's horror is real. His grief is real. His refusal to turn loved ones into targets is real. But Krishna shows him that compassion by itself is not always enough, because compassion without clarity can become paralysis. You can feel that truth in your own bones. Sometimes the heart is so soft it cannot choose. It sees everyone's pain so vividly that it freezes. It calls that goodness. It calls that harmlessness. But stillness is not always peace. Sometimes it is just fear wearing holy clothes. That is why Krishna begins where he does. He does not begin with tactics. He does not begin with victory. He begins with the soul. The air changes there. The battlefield grows strangely quiet around that teaching. Dust hangs in the light. Horses stamp and breathe. And in the middle of all that tension comes this steadying thought. What you truly are cannot be cut, burned, soaked, or dried. The body suffers, the heart grieves, the mind trembles, but the deepest self, the Atman, is not destroyed when the body falls. That teaching is not meant to make Arjuna cold. It is meant to keep him from drowning. Grief in this vision is honored, but it is not the final truth. You mourn because you love. Of course you do. Yet beneath mourning, there is something death cannot touch, something older than birth, something that survives every change of clothing, every season of the world. That is one of the great comforts offered here. Not that loss is unreal, not that sorrow is foolish, only that the soul is larger than the event that breaks your heart. Then Krishna turns to Dharma. That word can sound heavy if you leave it sitting on a shelf, but on the battlefield, it becomes immediate. Dharma is your duty. Yes, your role, your right action. the shape of responsibility that belongs to you and not to someone else. For Arjuna, Dharma means warrior duty. In a righteous war, he did not seek, but cannot honestly avoid. That is the sharp edge of the teaching. Because Dharma is not always pleasant. It does not always line up with personal comfort. Sometimes it asks for the act you least want to perform. Sometimes it places you in a world where every option costs something. And still, Krishna tells him, do not flee your deepest responsibility just because it wounds your feelings. That sounds severe until you sit with it a little longer. What he is really saying is this: do not abandon what is yours to do. Do not slip into somebody else's life because your own has become painful. Do not decorate avoidance and call it wisdom. This is where karma yoga enters, and it may be the most practical thing in the whole song. Act fully, act well, and release the fruit. That is the teaching. Do your work without chaining your peace to the result. Plant, water, tend, serve, speak, protect, build, mend. Then let go of the feverish demand that the world obey your plans. You can almost feel the breath of that. Inhale, effort, exhale, release. Krishna knows the trap Arjuna is in. He is imagining every consequence at once. Who will fall? Who will mourn? What kind of king he would become after such a war? He wants guarantees before he acts. And Krishna tells him that guarantees are not given to human beings. Action is yours. Outcome is not. That is karma yoga, not passivity, not laziness, not shrugging and wandering off while the kingdom burns. It is disciplined action without possession. No, it is disciplined action without possession. You offer the deed, but you do not clutch at the result with both fists. That is freedom. Then comes Maya, the great enchantment. The world is real enough to wound you, but it is not the whole picture. That is the point. We get trapped in surfaces: status, humiliation, gain, loss, praise, blame, success, ruin. These things feel enormous when your face is pressed against them. Krishna keeps pulling Arjuna back from that narrowness. He widens the frame. Again and again, he says, you are not just this fear, not just this moment, not just this trembling body in a chariot between cousins. Reality is deeper than what panic can see. And then, to make sure Arjuna really understands, Krishna tears the curtain open. The universal form, the Vishvarupa, all those mouths, all those eyes, suns blazing, time unfolding, worlds arising and disappearing inside one divine body. That vision does many things at once. It humbles Arjuna completely. It shows him that the universe is not built around his private despair. And it reveals something enormous and strange, that even destruction is held inside the divine, not outside it, inside. That is one of the hardest teachings in the Gita, and one of the most comforting. The world contains endings. It contains ruin, grief, collapse, parting, the long season when the field is stripped bare. But none of that falls outside the vastness Krishna reveals. Time devours, yes, but time itself is part of the sacred whole. So Arjuna is not being asked to create the universe through his action. He is being asked to participate honestly in a universe already moving. That changes everything. You can feel the burden shift. He does not have to hold up the sky. He only has to stand rightly beneath it. And after the cosmic blaze, the teaching becomes tender again. Bhakti, devotion, trust. This is the part people sometimes miss because the vision is so dazzling. But the heart of the song may be quieter than that. After all the philosophy, all the metaphysics, all the terrifying splendor, Krishna comes close again, friend to friend, charioteer to warrior. He tells Arjuna, in essence, to bring himself fully, to place his heart in the divine, to stop living as if he must control every turning of the wheel. This is surrender, not defeat, not helplessness. Surrender in the Gita is strong. It is awake. It is the moment you stop pretending that anxiety is mastery. It is the moment you release the fantasy that if you worry hard enough, grip hard enough, calculate hard enough, you can force the world to become safe. You cannot. Arjuna cannot. None of us can. But you can act from your deepest truth. You can offer that action. You can trust that you are held within something greater than your fear. That is what Krishna is giving him at the end. Not a map of every consequence. Not a promise that the war will be painless. Certainly not that everyone will live happily after 18 days of chariot wheels and vows and dust. He gives him steadiness. He gives him alignment. He gives him back to himself. And that, finally, is why Arjuna can lift the bow. Not because he stops loving, not because he becomes hard, not because his questions were foolish. He lifts it because his confusion has burned away. He knows who he is. He knows what is his to do. He knows the soul is larger than the body's fear. He knows action matters. He knows outcomes are not his to own. He knows the divine is both intimate and vast beyond telling. He knows at last that he does not stand alone. That is what the ancient rishis wanted preserved. That when life becomes unbearable, the answer is not always withdrawal. That dharma may hurt and still be right. That karma means every action matters, even when you cannot control its fruit. That maya is the fog that makes temporary things look absolute. And that bhakti, devotion, surrender, trust, is not for the weak. It is for the exhausted heart that has finally understood it cannot carry the world by itself. So the teaching settles into something almost simple enough to rest with. Do what is yours to do. Do it with a clear heart. Release what comes after. And remember that beneath grief, beneath fear, beneath all the noise of the battlefield, you are held by something vast, intelligent, and loving. That is the answer given in the chariot. That is the song inside the thunder. And once you hear it, even the noise of war cannot quite drown it out. The conch shells are faded now. The dust settles, but the song keeps going. Kurukshetra does not vanish. The field remains under the wide Indian sky, hot and pale at noon, silver under moonlight, damp with dawn mist when the winter season turns. The banners will fall. The chariot wheels will carve their deep tracks. 18 days will pass over that sacred ground, like a hard wind over dry grass. But not tonight. Tonight, the war can wait out there in the darkness, just beyond the edge of the firelight. For now, stay with the quieter thing. Stay with the moment after Arjuna lifts the bow. You can still feel it in your own hands, the return of strength, the settling of breath, the strange calm that comes after tears have run their course. The horses are no longer stamping in panic. They stand warm and steady, their flanks rising and falling. Krishna holds the reins loosely. The leather creaks. A small bell on the harness gives a soft, bright sound. The smell is horse sweat, dust, sun-warmed wood, and a faint thread of sandalwood from somewhere far behind the lines. The song has been sung, and somehow it does not end there. It moves. It travels farther than arrows, farther than kings, farther than the grief of one family tearing itself apart on a field of Dharma. It slips past that morning and keeps going through the centuries, through monsoon rain on tiled roofs, through temple courtyards washed at dawn, through the crackle of oil lamps, through the low murmur of evening prayer. It goes where voices go when they are loved enough to be remembered. You can almost watch it move. A small house in Tamil Nadu. Night has settled thick and warm around the courtyard. The air smells of jasmine and rice cooling in the kitchen. Somewhere beyond the wall, a bicycle passes with a faint metallic rattle. Crickets pulse in the dark. An old brass lamp burns with a steady flame, and beside it, a grandmother sits cross-legged on the floor. Her cotton sari soft with years of washing. She turns the pages carefully. Her lips move, not quickly, never quickly. She has read these verses so many times that they live half in the book and half in her breath. Her finger rests for a moment on a line she knows by heart. The gold on her wrist gives a tiny clink as she adjusts the page. A child, not yet asleep, watches from a mat nearby. The child does not understand every word. That hardly matters. The rhythm enters anyway. This is how songs survive, not by shouting, by being repeated while lentils simmer and lamps burn low, and the night air presses gently against the windows. And the chariot is there too, not in wood and bronze this time, in the hush between one line and the next, in the old woman's face when she reaches a passage that still softens her, even now, after all these years of weddings, funerals, births, deaths, fevers, train journeys, family quarrels, and ordinary mornings sweeping the front step. Krishna is still there, smiling that small, knowing smile. Arjuna is still there, asking with his whole heart. Morning comes in Mumbai. The city is already awake in the way only Mumbai can be awake. Half thunder, half improvisation. Pressure cookers hiss. Horns answer each other without any clear plan. Trains hum like huge iron insects. The air carries diesel, frying batter, wet concrete, and sea salt. A student sits at a narrow desk by a window. Notes are stacked in nervous towers, pens, admit card, water bottle, a textbook swollen with loose pages. The ceiling fan chops the warm air into tired circles. Outside, somebody is arguing with a scooter that refuses to start. The scooter, to be fair, has its own opinions. The student pauses for 1 minute, just one. A small copy of the Gita lies under a notebook, blue cover worn at the corners. It opens almost automatically to a familiar place. The student reads a few lines before the exam. Not as ritual exactly, not as superstition either. More like reaching for a handrail before stepping into a fast-moving crowd. You can feel that too. That little private moment before the day asks everything of you. The throat dry, the stomach fluttering, the strange suspicion that your entire future has somehow been packed into 3 hours and several badly worded questions. And into that bright, anxious room comes the same old voice from the chariot. Steady yourself. Do what is yours to do. Leave the rest. The student closes the book, breathes once, twice, picks up the pen. The city roars on, and the song goes with them. Elsewhere, in a hospital room where afternoon light has gone thin and almost blue, a man lies propped against white pillows. Machines blink softly beside him. The room smells faintly of antiseptic, warm linen, and the medicinal sharpness of spirit rubbed onto skin. Outside the door, rubber soles whisper along polished floors. The body has become heavy now, stubborn, a place of tubes, schedules, charts, and careful voices. Visitors come and go with fruit nobody wants to eat, Flowers arrive and begin bravely, and then give up by the third day. Time moves strangely in such rooms. A single hour can feel longer than a pilgrimage. On the tray beside the bed lies a copy of the Gita. Not decorative, used, pages bent, margins marked, a cover softened by touch. His hand reaches for it slowly. The skin is thin. The veins show blue beneath it. He opens to the second chapter, because many people do. When the walls feel close and the future feels like a door no one can quite describe. He reads about the soul changing bodies as a person changes garments. A simple image, almost domestic, almost unfairly gentle for so large a mystery. And yet, there it is, doing its work. The machines continue their patient blinking. Evening gathers at the window. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughs too loudly for a hospital and is immediately shushed. Life, as usual, refuses to become solemn on command. You are in that room for a moment. You can hear the air vent hum. You can feel the cool rail of the bed under your palm. And in that small square of fading light, Kurukshetra opens again. Not with armies this time, with one frail man, one worn book, and the same question all humans eventually reach. What am I really, when everything I can name is being taken away? The answer comes as it came before, not hurried, not frightened, still. And still the song keeps going. A winter afternoon in New York, underground. The subway car rocks and groans through the tunnel. Metal shrieks at curves. Advertisements flutter slightly above the windows. Wet coats steam in the heat. The smell is old iron, newspaper ink, coffee, wool, rainwater drying from boots. People stare at phones, into middle distance, at nothing at all. A woman sits by the door with a used bookstore copy in her lap. The book still carries another person's pencil notes from years ago. A receipt serves as a bookmark. The cover has one of those impossible paintings, blue skin, gold light, a chariot somehow holding both elegance and absolute crisis. She did not go looking for it exactly. It found her in a stack between a cookbook and a detective novel. That is how these things happen sometimes. One day your life is moving along in its usual crooked line, and the next day you are on a train under a foreign city's streets, reading words spoken on a battlefield thousands of years ago, and somehow they sound as if they have been waiting specifically for you. The car lurches. Someone's shopping bag tips over and oranges roll 3 seats down. A little disaster. Round, cheerful, impossible to stop with dignity. 2 strangers scramble after them. One orange escapes everyone and continues on its enlightened journey toward the next compartment. Even now, life refuses to hold a straight face for long. The woman smiles without meaning to. Then she looks back at the page. Her stop passes. She hardly notices. Because there is Arjuna again, forever on the edge of action, forever unable to move until he understands what movement means. And there is Krishna, dark and bright, near enough to touch and vast beyond thought, saying exactly what must be said at exactly the moment a heart can finally hear it. You can sit beside her if you like, feel the train sway, watch tunnel light flicker across the page, ancient dust and electric shadow together. The song does not mind where it is read. Temple stone, hospital bed, exam desk, subway car, front porch in summer heat, ashram at dawn, prison cell, airport gate, a cheap plastic chair outside an intensive care unit, a monk's room high in the hills where the air smells of cedar and cold water, a soldier's pocket, a widow's bedside table, a teenager's backpack crumpled between earphones and geometry homework, It goes where it is needed. And perhaps that is the quiet wonder of it. Not that it was sung once, that it continues to arrive. Again and again, whenever someone comes to the center of their own life and finds two armies drawn up there, duty on one side, love on the other, fear in the throat, confusion in the chest, no clean road visible anywhere. You know that place. Of course you do. Anyone who has lived even a little knows that place. The room where the decision waits, the night before the phone call, the chair outside the door, the morning you must leave, the hour you must stay, the moment when every option seems to carry grief inside it. That is when the old field opens. That is when the horses breathe beside you. That is when the chariot stands between forces larger than comfort. And if you become very still, you can almost hear the reins shift in Krishna's hands. Not as thunder, as presence, as patience, as the feeling that you are not abandoned inside your uncertainty. The answer may not come all at once. Arjuna did not get a neat little sentence and instantly become serene. He trembled, he argued, he doubted, he listened, he saw too much, he begged for gentleness, he received it. So do many who turn toward this song. Not certainty like a stone, something better. Enough clarity for the next step, enough courage to lift what has fallen from the hands, enough surrender to sleep when the mind is tired of wrestling the world. Now the field grows quieter. The banners are still. The last red of sunset has gone from the western edge of the sky. A cooler breeze moves over Kurukshetra at last, carrying the smell of dry grass and distant water. The horses lower their heads. Leather settles. The wheels are marked with dust. Krishna sits easy at the front of the chariot, as if he has all the time in the world. Arjuna is beside him, and beside him, and beside him, always on the verge of asking, always being answered. You can see them if you want. Not with strain, just the way you see fire, through closed eyelids. A blue-dark figure with the reins in hand, a warrior with a bow across his knees. The space between them, full of everything that can be spoken and everything that can only be understood in silence. Far away, a river moves through the night. It slips around stones without argument. It carries moonlight in broken pieces. It goes on. And somewhere, in lamplight or train light or the thin blue light of a hospital monitor, another page is turning. Another hand pauses over a verse. Another tired heart sits down in the middle of its own battlefield and admits, at last, that it does not know what to do. And the song, patient as breath, begins again. The horses breathe. The reins rest. The dust settles softly over the wheels. And the river keeps finding the sea.